3 weeks of competitions, thousands of competitors, but by the end of today, there will be only 4 that are guaranteed to be at our Royale Masters Gold Edition Finals, battling for $50,000, or the lion's share of $50,000, and that golden ticket, the final golden ticket up for grabs. Hello, everybody. I am Andrew Guy, joined as always by my good friend Joshua AC Sharon. AC, we have an exciting matchup to start our day. 2 world champions, but first, we have some business to attend to, my friend. Tell me about the event of Royale Masters Gold Edition.
Let's see, we do have the first 3 weeks as the qualifiers. I want to see the bracket. I will say I do have literally all of this memorized, so I technically don't need the brackets anymore.
You're a pro now. You're a pro now.
I get it. I figured this out. We have the first 3 weeks as the qualifiers 1, 2, and 3, trying to get that top 4 total qualification points. I'm pretty sure we already do have a auto-qualified person. And that man might already be to Tone, so I think it's 3 last players trying to vie for that position. If you can't qualify, if you aren't one of the lucky 4 to qualify, there's still one more chance. You have the wild card open to get another top 4 placement. Those 8 players will make it to the playoffs, and they will battle for that golden ticket.
Yeah, Titone has done so well over our first few weeks of competitions. He is one of the 4 already locked in. Furkan only has to win 1 match today, his first match, to qualify as well. So those spots are a-flying quickly, very, very quickly. You don't want to have to be in that wild card open, but you do have to play through this Masters duel format. If you win with the deck, you cannot repeat any of those 8 cards. If you lose with the deck, you can run it back as many times as you like. Everything is going to be best of 3, single elimination today, except our finals. Our grand finals, as they have been the last couple of weeks, will be a best of 5 in the exact same duel format, which is a really, really fun one. I absolutely love this. I think it's been great for us to be able to analyze, guess what people are going to play. And also, I love when someone loses with the deck, they can just run it straight back. But this is day 2 of our Open Qualifiers, week number 3. This is it. This is the end of Open registration. Yes, there is the Wild Card Open next weekend, which anyone can join in as well. But only 4 spots come from there. And based off of the last couple weeks and the names that we've seen shown up in these Open Qualifiers, it's going to be very, very steep competition. Here is the prize pool, AC. $50K on the line and $7K today.
Open qualifiers are going to have $7,000 each. This is the 3rd and final Open qualifier. $2,500, $1,500, $800, and let's say you can't win a single game. That's all right. I mean, that's okay. You're still going to walk away with $100. The wild card open next weekend will have a grand prize of $4,000, $1,200, $800, $400, $200, and again, if you can't win a single game, it's $100. And if you are able to be one of the lucky 8 to make it to the playoffs, not only do you get a golden ticket for finishing first and $10,000, second place is going to get $6,000, $3,000, $2,000. Let's say you lose, $700 walking away with.
Not bad at all. Let's take a look here at our bracket. We'll look at the leaderboard a little bit later on today once more people are locked in, but you can see here incredible matchups. We're going to start in the very bottom right-hand corner. I said it earlier, and I'm going to say it again. Our defending world champion. That's him. That's Mugi right there going up against Igor, our world champion from 2019. There's other great matches going on, but in the round of 16, we will only be focusing on the 1 match, then quarters, semis, and grand finals. We'll cover all of the gameplay, and we'll make sure that we're sending it your guys' way as well. AC, this is a really, really exciting match. We didn't even know it was Mugi till after we got off broadcast. That's one of the tough things with Battle 5 and, thousands and thousands of competitors. We can't Google every single one of their names. We can't figure out who they are. But knowing that it was Mugi afterwards, and you and I, we always decide what match we want to watch to start our day. How you feeling about this matchup? You are a Mugi stan. You loved when he won World Finals, but he's going up against one of the best players in Igor. Talk to me about our start of the day.
Well, as soon as I found out that it was him, I deleted my previous message because I didn't want there to be any confusion whatsoever. I want to watch those 2 players play. Both of them fantastic. I mean, Igor, he's doing well. We saw last week he obviously still has the talent. It's just whether or not he can put together some actual great decks.
Yeah.
That's always that's always been who he is. Like, you know, talent was never the problem. It was always deck choices. It was always like, can we get you to practice and learn something new. On the flip side, Mugi, I mean, he is kind of hot and cold with tournaments for the last couple years, and by that I mean he won't play two, or he won't do too well in two, and then the next one he'll win. Right. So I think it's been a couple tournaments since he's won, which does mean he might be due at this point.
Yeah, Mugi's one of those guys that I didn't really understand because I hadn't watched him play as much being over on the West, in the West for so long. He was a player that I heard you guys talk about with the utmost respect and with the same kind of respect and scaredness that you get when you go up against someone like Mohamed Light, right? Where you're like, man, he's so good. He can beat anyone on any given day. And I didn't really understand it until I watched him at World Finals last year. Obviously, I'd watched him play here and there, but when you put it together on that stage, that much money on the line, going up against the best in the world, and for Mugi to come out on top, it was a really special thing to see. So, like we said, here we go. Royale Masters Gold Edition Open Qualifier 3 comes to an end in just a few hours. We will have our 4 players. Whoever wins today should also be guaranteed a spot. And you know that Igor and Mugi both want that. 2 former world champions going head-to-head. This is what it's all about.
A minute cycled in. Only Mugi's the only player who's played. So definitely an interesting situation for Igor, electing not to defend, not to try and spell cycle. And yeah, just it's not often where we see just one player doing the cycling in the first 2 minutes.
Yeah, you usually figure if they're going to get some damage in on you. I mean, you can already see almost over 300 damage done with that Log plus Earthquake and Electro Spirit. Igor may be playing Royal Giant. We saw him play it a few times yesterday. I haven't seen him play much Golem or much Lava in his career. I think I've seen Lava a few times, but we have seen RG. But even then, this is a bit of a surprising start here for Igor. And Mugi could be running Hog Cycle, he could be running E-Giant. There's a lot of things that Earthquake kind of work with right now. But also now electing to sit back with the hand that he has, cycle those cheap cards away. And I figure we'll see something starting right now. There we go. And it is going to be E-Giant from Igor. He goes bottom left-hand corner. Mugi responds with a giant skeleton of his own, and it is looking even more so like Hog now with that giant skelly.
Now the question is he going to get the double E-Giant set up, or is he going to elect? And there we go, we do see the double E-Giant setup. We've seen how, you know, talented he is with, wow, okay, there we go, that's a solid push right there. But we've seen how talented he is with the NATO, so he's always going to be able to play that correctly. And right there, that's a good start for Igor. Skeletons are going to be placed late, but okay, Fisherman does get a shot because of the skeletons being late.
And that lightning did not target the Archer Queen, so you see Igor having to focus his attention on that AQ while the giant skeleton makes his way to the tower. That will be a giant skelly on the tower. So as quickly as Igor had the lead, Mugi steals it right back with that giant skelly explosion. Igor probably very happy about the slight nerf and damage to that death bomb, but a bit of a, it's hard to say a mistake because you can't really thread the needle on that lightning when you're trying to get the damage on the Princess Tower and there's that many units stacked up. I loved the NATO to pull everything together, the connection there, but maybe just a little bit aggressive from Igor. He kind of did a full sellout push and then was punished for it. And here he goes again.
Okay, should be able to get to the tower, and he does. Mother Witch needs to get that giant skeleton off the board, and there we go. We do see it. Mother Witch has gotten a decent amount of value in this, and I was going to say maybe that's not the card you want to be using your mirror on, but right there, got a ton of value.
Yeah, level 13 Piggies getting in some good work. 9-11 remains. Now the RG comes down here for Mugi. Igor does have a cannon to respond with, but the Giant right now, the E-Giant, just locking up the RG in its place. Now the cannon comes down up high outside of that Earthquake range, and this is exactly the type of gameplay you want to see from both of these guys. So close in damage, both making great plays, and Igor ahead by just a hair.
There we go, we do see the double Mother Witch once again. No Golden Knight anywhere just yet. Golden Knight placed directly on top. Cannon should come down shortly. We see the dash once again. Mother Witch has gotten some damage on top of the RG, but he's going to need to set up a push soon. 40 seconds left in overtime. Triple Elixir happening right now.
I know, these mirrored Mother Witches, the amount of Mother Witches that Igor is cycling here on the board is kind of surprising to me. I'm not upset about it by any means, but it's like yesterday. It's always interesting to see what Igor decides to mirror. Today it was the Mother Witches. Yesterday it was the Mega Minions. And now Igor on his back foot, he's just going to hang up the phone and go on to game number 2. A nice, patient overwhelm there by Mugi. AC, when did things start to go wrong for Igor, or do you think he was just super aggressive early on, and that's how he was able to get in good damage?
I think I don't necessarily think he made any like huge mistakes whatsoever. I think it more has to do with the fact that, like, I think the mirrored Mother Witches weren't bad plays by, you know, I really don't think they were bad plays, but I do think if you're in a situation where mirroring the Mother Witch is your only option,
yeah,
that means that something happened where, you know, either with deck creation or something along those lines, you just shouldn't be using the mirror on the Mother Witch.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you look at the deck composition, there's not really other good ways to get good, strong DPS down, right? It's literally just the Mother Witch, the Golden Knight, and the Skellies, and then the cannon obviously needs to be used for the Royal Giants. So I guess Igor's only option was to keep mirroring the Mother Witch, because what else could he really do to try to get any DPS down on the board and obviously turn whatever he kills into some piggies to kind of distract for a moment. The deck, you know, it's something that you talked about at the top of the show. I feel like this deck was just a little bit off. I don't hate it by any means. I just feel like it didn't have enough single target DPS to burn through those giant skellies, and it left so much on the field in the Zappies and the AQ and usually an untouched RG that all needed to be focused down on. And the best way to do that was mirror the Mother Witches and then drop the Golden Knight right on top of everything. And he's not that tanky. He's not tanky enough to deal with 3 Zappies and an AQ. So maybe it really is more about the deck composition there. As you guys saw the numbers there by Royale API, 32%, I believe, in favor of Igor, 68% in favor of Mugi. So that's not the matchup conversation that you want to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another thing that could come into play is, like, if he had any sort of log or anything to wipe the Zappies off the board, the Zappies just always stayed alive with like 2 health every single time, and it was just way too much. And the overwhelm was just going to happen.
So Igor changes things up a bit. He sticks with Lightning, but he decides to go with Tombstone and Zappies to surround it. Mother Witch still in hand. Mugi going to a very, very popular, one of the most popular decks in the meta and in the entire competitive scene. It's going to be Drill Cycle with Magic Archer, probably NATO. We'll see if he decides to go E-Wiz or not.
Golden Knight does use the dash, so he won't be able to get to the tower. The Crown Towers will be able to take it out just in time. Slight damage advantage for Mugi. Cycles the Magic Archer in the back, and both players just trying to reset. Igor's Tombstone in this deck does make it kind of interesting. I would assume it's probably going to be RG.
Yeah.
And then Mugi, if it is RG, Mugi's going to have a hard time once he starts really setting up his pushes as double and triple elixir happens.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we've kind of noticed throughout the weekends about this deck specifically that Mugi is running is it doesn't always match up great against RG late game. There's not a lot of good ways to keep that RG at bay. Yes, there's the NATO. Yes, there's the drill. But once you start using the drill defensively a lot, you lose a lot of your offensive presence. So we'll see how our defending world champion wants to play this matchup. Already up 1 game, looking to eliminate Igor here and I believe end his opportunity or his chances at getting a ticket to our finals. He might have to show up next weekend in our Wildcard Open. Nice NATO connection there.
Yeah, that is a great play right there. Gets the Golden Knight onto the tower, takes out the Mother Witch and the Skeleton King, and still allows for the Magic Archer to get value. No King Tower activation, so I'm not sure if he was really going for that or if he was just trying to kind of set up. But this is what I was talking about. With 20 seconds left, he finally has the push going. Skeleton King will be popped in front. RG should go behind, and there we go. With 12 seconds left, he finally gets his first real push in.
Not able to snipe that Magic Archer is the Fish Boy. Another great NATO there from Mugi. He does get 1 shot. Igor does get 1 shot on the tower. But Mugi has a great dual lane counter push coming And that's a lot for Igor to deal with. He goes Zappies up high, maybe Skeleton King down low when he ticks to 4. There it is.
Yeah, that was brilliant defense right there. Really, these kind of decks struggle a lot once the push is going, and it forces you to spend too much elixir. It forces you to do this. But right there, he got an elixir advantage while defending, and that's not something we ever see.
Ewiz goes into no man's land, comes down maybe just a second early. Igor gets a couple good shots there, 1761, but Igor also completely ignores the Magic Archer in the left-hand lane, so Mugi is still in the lead by about 600 damage, and that's something that Igor does a lot. You'll see him min-maxing a lot in moments where he really needs to recover that elixir deficit that he's in, and that's a lot of damage for him to take. He's going to have to clean that up very, very soon.
RG going to come out, and I'm not a huge fan of that. You're only going to get one shot, and you're going to allow your opponent to fully set up the Ewiz, the Cannon Cart, the Golden Knight coming down, and then it allows the left lane. Every single time with these kind of decks, you make the right lane push, or you make the opposite lane push, and then you really go into the opposite lane as the one you actually want to be going into. So Mother Wish going to come down, going to be able to take out the Magic Archer, and with 40 seconds left, I don't know if he's going to try and Lightning Cycle. I don't know what his plan is going to be, but I don't know if he's going to be able to defend this.
Yeah, I mean, he may defend, but he may just be caught defending for a long time here. Goes high with the Mother Witch to catch the Magic Archer that resets, doesn't go on top of the Skeleton King, and with 25 seconds remaining, Igor does have time. Maybe he has to switch lanes, though. Yes, there's the lane switch. Skeleton King comes down, ability going to come in. RG there, but the NATO plus the Ewiz and the DPS from the Royal Ghost are just enough.
Here we go, gets that. Oh,
wow.
If it would have been able to lock onto the Hog, he would have had that.
And as quickly as this matchup started, Igor will be eliminated 2-0, and beautiful plays there by Mugi. You can see 100 HP is all that Igor needed. He almost got that final shot in from that Royal Giant, and that would have taken us to a game number 3. But Igor, who had a brilliant run yesterday, comes to a quick and short stop here on our Championship Sunday. And there it is. You can see it in the numbers. Again, Igor caught in a lesser matchup. This one not quite as substantial as the last one. Like I said, I think it was 32 or 38 to 62 or 68. This time, more of what you want to see, right, AC?
Yeah, absolutely. I liked the deck choice in game number 2 from both players, actually. And I really felt like that game... I feel like the player that played the best won that game. It didn't feel like some huge advantage, and it wasn't like, oh, he played one card and then it was just an easy defense or an easy offense. I felt like there was a few times where maybe Igor overextended a little bit, didn't have the right elixir, didn't have the right push going, and because of that, he lost by 100 HP. So, I mean, I really think it was the better player for that specific game won.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been literally just one lightning cycle instead of sending out that RG, which it is a really painful thing to watch. Obviously, you and I are big fans of both of these guys, but unfortunately, in a best-of-3 single elimination tournament, one of them has to go after the very first set of the day. So we say goodbye to Igor, and before we hop into our quarterfinals, it sounds like we might be able to see Game 3 of Morton versus Bruzani, which is another really great Round 1 matchup. And remember, there are obviously 6 other ones going on. We will catch up with the winners of all those in the bracket in just a moment. But the big things that we talked about, AC, now that we have a little bit more time to touch on them, is Titone has already qualified. He will be one of our 4 players. Furkan just needs to win this first set of the day. He should basically guarantee himself as well. So here we go, Bruzani and Morton in game number 3. Morton going to Hog EQ cycle with Musketeer, and Bruzani going with Zappy. Oh, excuse me, the decks on the left are actually swapped. So it was Morton that won with Mortar and Bruzani that won with the Goblin Drill deck. And now Bruzani looking like he could be going Mortar Graveyard?
Yeah, it does appear to be the case. I like the idea of using the Archer Queen Mortar Graveyard Cannon card in, with the synergy with all those cards together. Morton's just going to be sticking with the tried and true Hog Earthquake, and I like that for him. I think he can get some decent matchups overall with it, and we all know how talented he is with the quick cycle Hog decks.
Yeah.
So I really like both of these deck choices. And that's fun for me to say, because oftentimes, especially early in tournaments, I find myself thinking, why would you do this? Why would you do that? But right here, you know, of the players that we've seen so far, everything makes sense.
Yeah, Morton always a great cycle player, obviously running a bit of a different version without the Giant Skeleton and AQ. He decides to go Golden Knight plus Musketeer and Royal Delivery. That Royal Delivery will be really nice for helping set the line up high. But because this is a Mortar graveyard deck, at least it looks like it as of this point, just a little bit different defense than what you would normally do in a typical GY deck, with just being able to set the line up high and defend down low. Obviously going to have to be thinking about that Mortar.
45 seconds left does come in with the poison, so Bruzani has showed every single card. It will not be graveyard, it will be a minor poison snowball deck. And so the snowballs continue to confuse me, but it just makes sense with all these kind of new formats. You know, you can't use log in every single deck, although now that I'm looking at Bruzani's deck, he could have used log.
He could use log, yeah. And a bit of a misplay there by Brew going up high with the Valkyrie. It takes the Mortar off the board, which allows the Hog Rider to sneak in for a hit. So 1438, lowest tower on the board, 2271, the lowest tower for Morton. And that should also connect. So he has to go high here with the Valkyrie to protect the Cannon Cart, protect that Princess Tower. And now this is a moment where you kind of wish he had GY with his strong counter push coming down the lane.
Cannon Cart does get cleaned up for the most part. Can it get within the range of the opposing cannon? It does not, so that's going to be just off the wheels just like that. Archer Queen does come down with the log. No Royal Delivery in cycle, so that will be a lock on the tower, and a huge mistake from Morton right there.
I think Morton thought the Golden Knight was going to get around. I think he had the Skellies in cycle. He could have played something there, and all of a sudden a matchup that looked like it was really going Morton's way. That's a big-time hit for him to take.
Wow, so it does dash onto the Valk plus the cannon, but it does not dash onto the tower. So I really thought it was either he's able to protect it or it's going to make it to the tower. He doesn't protect it, but it doesn't make it to the tower. So now here we go, triple elixir. This is when the miners and the poison will just be continued to cycle onto the crown tower.
Yeah, and this is huge for Morton. He needs to create some sort of offense, so he goes Golden Knight ahead of the Musketeer. He knows that Bruzani literally just needs one more minor poison snowball, and that should be enough to take the tower down. He will need the hit, and once again, Golden Knight does not go to the Princess Tower. Snowball comes down, 30 HP remains, and Morton does what Morton does time and time again, winning in the final seconds there. Great job. The Hog must have gotten a swing there to bring it down to 30 HP. Is that what happened?
Yeah, the Hog got the shot. He goes in with a minor poison instead of playing it, you know, just playing it safe. It was clear that it was going to be one last push for Bruzani if you get that one more defense in, and he went with the push too early. You gotta defend first, and then you get to go in with your minor poisons. Then you can try and cycle that last poison, that last snowball, wherever it is. Instead, the Hog gets that shot, and I saw it go down to 30 HP. I just couldn't believe that it actually got that hit.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of called it perfectly there. So you got to defend first, right? You have the options. You have the snowball. You have the zappies. You can. I don't think he could have gotten back around to Mortar, but he shouldn't have needed it with snowball plus a few other units. Then you send in the minor or the poison, just getting a little bit ahead of himself, and I still think that's where the inexperience comes into the conversation. Bruzani's been playing a lot of competitive. He's been doing really, really great. But when you talk about him compared to Morton, their resume, their experience, their history in Clash Royale, Morton is a guy that has always been able to kind of keep it buttoned down, even in the most stressful of moments. We saw, you know, everyone knows about the 1 HP moment, but even him be able to come back into that game. And then you look at World Finals last year, playing through that bad matchup against Mini with Bait. It's just something that he's known to do, man. And I'm not surprised by it, but I am happy to see him continue on today. I think we might be able to check in with our bracket, although my producer might get mad at me for calling it out before he did. But that should be towards the end of our first round of 16. We should be narrowed down to 8 very soon. And I'll be curious, because when you look at this bracket, AC, there is a lot of really, really talented dudes. Last weekend, we saw a lot of the better players fall early. And today, I don't know if it's the same. I'd say it's maybe like 50-50.
Yeah, the player that I'm really excited for, Furkan, does win his first round match, so that should move him into the playoffs. So congratulations to Furkan. Hugo is another player that I'm excited to see. You've been talking about him for the last, X amount of weeks, X amount of months. And then we also, it's sad to see Igor out round one, but one of them had to be out, and we are going to see more of Mugi.
Yeah, and Mugi is someone that I've seen very little this year. I know that he showed up in the Brenchong Cup Masters Edition, I believe. He ended up getting second place in that, in the Masters Challenge and the Brenchong Cup. He got fourth place in. So he's been showing up this year, and he's been playing pretty well. He just hasn't been able to solidify that #1 spot, get himself, that original golden ticket, although he did end up getting one passed down to him, right, from Igor. I mean, from Mohamed Light, because that's what Mohamed Light does. So Mugi will be at World Finals. Gens Azam will be at World Finals. Mohamed Light and Samuel Basoto, those are the 4 people we have right now. There is another tournament going on at the moment that is going to decide who will also be joining them with the 5th golden ticket. We don't know yet, but it's definitely something for you guys to keep your eyes out for. And then after today, whoever wins today should be able to guarantee their spot in our finals in a couple of weeks. Based off the matchups that we just saw, it looks like we're going to have some really fun ones. I think we saw Morton and Schwarzen will be on there. It's a bummer for Wallace. I know he was really excited about today, but he was eliminated in round #1. When you go to the other side of it, Furkan and Hugo, like you said, I've been talking about Hugo a lot over the last year, and I really do enjoy watching him play, but I need to see him dial it in the quarters and the semis and the grand finals. There's something about the way that he plays leading up to that point, and then once he gets to that level, I think the nerves get to him. I think maybe, the matchup conversation of the deck choices, he struggles with just a little bit. I don't think that he struggles as much as some other of the pros out there with that specific thing. I think for Hugo, it really is more about nerves. So him versus Furkan should be a really, really fun matchup. And then I know for you, you just kind of want to see if Mugi can just run it all day long, right? Is he your favorite to win our tournament today?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Yeah, it's a pretty simple answer. The 2 things that I wanted to see Furkan qualify. I've been loving his gameplay. So it's going to be great to be able to see him make it to the playoffs. And then I really want to see more of Mugi. It was either more of Mugi or Igor. So I knew I was going to be able to see one of them for round #2. So either way, I was going to be happy.
So right now we are just waiting on players to get their decks ready. Obviously they just finished their round of 16, so now going into the quarterfinals, you got to reset. You don't want to just run the same things back, especially because these guys have analysts looking to see what you played. I mean, that's the job of the analyst, right? If you're in that round of 16, let's say you're Morton, you got to look at what Schwarzen and Top played, what they've been playing over the last couple days, and then you want to cater your decks to go against that, and the same thing goes for them. So very little window for all these players and their analysts to get their ducks in a row. So Royale Masters next weekend, Wildcard Open, last chance qualifier, call it what you want. It is your last opportunity to get in and battling for that golden ticket. So remember, usually by the end of our broadcast today, those signups will be available. Check out Royale Masters on Twitter and join the Discord. All the information is down there below, and esports.clashroyale.com has all that centralized information for you guys on every single tournament. And I know that you and I are going to get in the studio, if you will, which is, I mean, it's literally the same with where we are right now, this coming week to get another episode of 3 Crowns out. So that's going to be something that you guys will also want to check out. We'll have the recap of who got the most recent golden ticket. We'll be sitting down with one of the game developers. I believe Max will be joining us for an interview. So it should be a really, really great episode of 3 Crowns. Check that out if you guys haven't already. Here we go, hopping into our quarterfinals, game #1. Remember, we're going to see every single one of these games moving forward. Technically, the only game we will miss will be our 3rd place matchup, but you guys will obviously know who takes that title as we go to Paolo versus Eric, who apparently hearts my mom.
I noticed that, and I was actually going to talk about that. We have not said his full name once this weekend, but now you gave the little shout out.
I hope it's just EB7. They spell Eric the same, so maybe that's where Eric's been.
I would assume it's probably with Valorant. Okay, we see the Zappy cycled in the back with a Goblin Cage. It could look like Graveyard if we see a Cannon Cart.
There you go.
And there we go. We do see the Cannon Cart. I'm
You're
really
on it today, man.
Yeah, really starting to figure out this Clash Royale stuff. And then Eric responding with the Fisherman as well as the Giant Skeleton. But the Giant Skeleton Bomb will not affect the Cannon Cart because of the Fisherman Yank.
Yeah, it's something that you pointed out yesterday on broadcast, and you can see Paolo using both of those cards. The Cannon Cart really felt like one of the most dominant, underrated, overutilized cards in the entire meta. And then now the Zappies, it feels like, has taken that title as showing up absolutely everywhere, just providing so much defensive utility, especially when you're talking about running with something like an E-Giant or keeping a Giant Skeleton at bay or even slowing down an RG. They're just so great right now with what it seems they keep running into on the opposing side of the battlefield. So we'll see how Paolo wants to use those two great cards to his advantage and when he will pull the trigger on that GY.
Inferno Dragon does get taken out. The tower plus the snowball will not allow for it to get a shot. Cannon Cart cycled in the back. He could have gone for the King Tower activation, but his opponent's going with RG, so I guess he figured that it really wasn't worth it.
Yeah, it's not huge. I mean, I guess the Giant Skeleton never really gets close enough for that King Tower to be much of a factor, and obviously with RG it doesn't, so not the end of the world, but it's still one of those things where you just think you might want that support if you can get it. If it's there, you might as well have your King Tower activated. You never know when you might need it, and that Cannon Cart gets pulled right in range. Perfect timing there on the Graveyard, and also perfect timing on that Electro Spirit, so a little bit of damage done, but it could have been a lot worse for Eric.
Inferno Dragon still alive just a little bit, so Fisherman will need to come out in response. Brawler from the cage will not make it to the Fisherman. Fisherman staying alive. And that Fisherman does allow for the Skeleton King to come back, but the Skeleton King does die off, so it doesn't matter.
I do like that high cage there because worst case scenario is Eric goes hyper aggressive with an RG, but the Cannon Cart is there off of its wheels just to make sure that the Royal Giant doesn't have a clear path to the tower. So nice defense there played by Paolo, who has dropped one Graveyard and has a very substantial lead, but you can see Eric setting up a big-time push here in the right-hand lane.
Delays the invisibility from the Archer Queen. I mean, it really delays it. I really thought that he wasn't even going to be able to get it off. Electro Spirit plus Hunter plus Giant Skeleton. It's just going to be another bridge battle.
Yeah.
But this time it really feels like Eric kind of had the advantage. Most of the times it's going Paolo's way just because the Inferno Dragon continues to snipe the Giant Skeleton. But because of the Hunter and the Electro Spirit, it didn't really go that way. Again, we see the Inferno Dragon played, and again, he does protect it fairly well. Archer Queen will stay alive.
Yeah, that's a really nice job there with the E-Spirit, making sure the AQ is behind that Giant Skeleton, puts in work on the Inferno. And like you said, it felt like the bridge battles were really going BK Paolo's way. And now you see maybe the first mistake here. No, Zappy cycle to the right to protect, and then he gets back around to the cage, plus the Inferno. Now we'll see if the Graveyard wants to come down in the left-hand lane. It does not. He just decides to go with a little bit of pressure there, and he resets here.
Cannon Cart, Snowball will be able to take, I think it was the Hunter off the board. And, I mean, the Cannon Carts are just getting so much value every single time. Log plus Earthquake will take off the Zappies, but the RG does only get 2 shots, 2200 HP, 23 seconds left, 900 HP separate in the two. We could see a naked Graveyard, or we could just see more defense and just no offense.
And I'm okay with that. I like the cycled Snowball. He's not going to really need that. There's the late cage. That's going to be enough to maybe at most take 1 shot. He doesn't take the shot. Fireball comes in, and that was a really, really great game by Paolo. Incredibly patient. I'll be interested to see the numbers conversation there, to see what the actual matchup conversation is. But, I mean, AC, that was the kind of poise, composure, and patience that you want to see at this level.
Absolutely. I mean, what was it? It was only 1 Graveyard, right?
I think so. I think it was just the 1 GY he pulled out early on.
Yeah, I mean, he got the damage that he needed. He said, I mean, he recognized that there's no need to overextend. It was great defense. There was a few times where it's like, oh, you know, maybe you shouldn't be cycling the Zappies this lane, or you shouldn't be doing that. But he always had a response, so yeah. It was the right play. It was okay that he goes RG opposite lane because he still has the Inferno Dragon plus cage. So just a really solid game overall. but it's weird. It's I can't remember the last time I've seen a graveyard matchup where the player doesn't do a naked graveyard at the end. Like that's kind of how you play graveyard. And I mean, he won the game, and like obviously it was the right play, but that's how you play graveyard. Like you get that one last graveyard at the end. That
do you think that was maybe like money left on the table there? Do you think that could have ensured his victory more? Or do you think that would have been a poor use of his elixir because you saw that he just really did need to defend?
Yeah, I honestly think it would have been a bad play to do that. So like I don't want it to sound like I am making it out to be a mistake.
Right.
It's just something that we always see, so it just feels weird not seeing it.
Yeah, no, I agree. You figure in the last 10 seconds, why not get another graveyard in? Worst case scenario is that you don't get any damage in, but they have to overspend defensively, which means they cannot create any offense. But Paolo doing the smarter thing there, and it's something that's really hard for people to do at every level. We see it even in our last matchup with Bruzani and Morton, right? It's like, you know that you should have this game locked up if you just continue to do these same few things. When Paolo recognized really early on, yeah, I mean, because even the graveyard that he got out, there was a really nicely timed E-Spirit plus log. I think he ended up getting a couple hundred damage, maybe almost even 1,000. I'm not sure where all the rest of that damage came to bring it down to like just above 2K. But he did what you said. He's like, all right, I've already won the game. Now I just need to defend. The Earthquake Cycle is not going to do it. And the cannon cards, like you were talking about, they did just get so much value. It's like every time he would just cycle them in the lane that he felt his opponent was pushing, and it really just kind of killed those pushes on the vine. The cannon cart plus the zappies was so great defensively because of that slow stun and because of how much HP that cannon cart has. I mean, we talked about it yesterday. It feels like this is the graveyard deck to play.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just the fact that he was able to only use the graveyard one time and then control the game. One other thing that I'd like to point out, his fireballs on top of the hunters, I think he did that like 6 times or something like that. So the massive amount of damage that he got from the fireballs was just a great play. I mean, just solid gameplay overall, and just really just impressive matchup knowledge where you know you can get away with just doing only one graveyard.
So Eric cycles a bomber, which means we're either going to see drill or E-Giant. After the stop and stare, you figure it's probably more E-Giant than it is drill.
And the great thing about these graveyard decks, yes, the cannon cart is super viable, and yes, the zappies can sometimes be used in other decks, but really, like, you know, the Inferno Dragon isn't going to be used. Cage is really only great for graveyard. And Fireball
so Paolo
used again.
Uses Fireball and recognizes the mistake. And man, this is 2 times in 2 days where we're seeing, I mean, yesterday obviously not as important because it wasn't in our finals and it was a player that hadn't really been showing up in those top 16 spots at the end of day 1. But this is just one of those mistakes that you see at this level. It's like, what is going on? Everything is on the line here. This is one of the biggest tournaments that, I mean, I think it is the biggest tournament I've ever seen Paolo in, and just doesn't reset his deck. He doesn't pick something different, reuses Fireball. What does that do to your mental confidence, AC? I mean, I guess the one good thing is that his opponent can no longer use an E-Giant deck?
Yeah, so, you know, there's always a positive out there. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely going to crush the mental side of everything. You know, you're new to the heavy competition, like everything on the line kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, obviously that's going to crush your spirit. For the pros, see, the thing is, you know, I can say for the pros, they're going to be able to fight back, and they're going to be able to do that, not easily, but definitely a lot easier than the fresher players to the scene. But also the pros aren't going to make that mistake because they know what's on the line. They have the analysts, they have, you know, everything set up for it. So yeah, I mean, just pretty disappointing that it happened, just because we never really want to see that in competition. But yeah, it's going to be hard to really refocus.
Yeah, no, so now you're caught in a best of one with your life on the line, and obviously you're going to want to keep going to the top of the day today. You want to win in the finals because it should guarantee you a spot in our playoffs, but a mistake like that this early on in your second set of the day, like I said, it's now a best of one, life on the line. So we got DK Paolo that cannot use all those cards that we were just talking about, which, I mean, the conversation is still the same. AC, I agree. There's not a lot of overlap there. Yes, there's good utility cards. Yes, Fireball's great. Yes, Skeleton King is great, but there are a lot of good replacements for that. Whether you use AQ or Golden Knight, I do believe there's other good champions, and obviously, Fireball can be replaced with a handful of other spells in the meta right now. And then for his opponent, in Eric looked like he was running some version of E-Giant, and I don't know all the cards that were surrounding it. I don't know if it was the Earthquake version or not. We left the game so early, so we are just waiting for that match to finish up, and then them to reset their decks this time, hopefully. And then we will go into our game number 3 before we hop into our other 3 quarterfinal matchups. Gun to your head, who's taking this set now?
I still would say Paolo.
Mm-hmm.
I thought his gameplay was very impressive. I loved the Fireball cycling. I loved the Graveyard gameplay. Even with the tragedy of using a repeated card, I think the momentum still kind of lies with him. When you're given a free win, you are excited about that, but you're also thinking, wow, if I lose this, it really is just a 2-0. You don't really think about the 1 win. You're not thinking it's 1-1. You're still thinking it's 0-1.
Yeah, that's fair. So Paolo does reset this time. He goes to bait, early barrel, plus an aggressive princess up high. Eric looks like he's going to go to Royal Giant, maybe Royal Giant Lightning, which could be nice because a lot of these bait decks are caught with Inferno Tower.
Wow, and that's going to be an older version of Logbait with Goblin Gang getting played.
I was going to say the gang. It's been so long. And he goes to the Knight also, so we're going old school, man.
Kind of a mistake right there. Probably should have played the Knight a little bit higher. Could have protected the Spear Goblins. Instead, uses the Knight low and forces out a log in response. And going to get aggressive. Skeleton King will come out in response. He might be able to set up an okay push, but it looks like this Princess should be able to clean everything up kind of nicely.
Fireball going to come down on top of the Princess. Now has to deal with the fact that his Skeleton King pushes are going to be harder and harder to defend because the only good way he has to clean it all up is a log. So there's the late log. And the gang comes down afterwards to surround. We'll see if the Mother Witch comes out in response again or not. Bit of an overspend, probably.
Solid surround with the Goblin Gang. Skeleton King does not make it to the tower, so a 650 HP lead as we head into double elixir. Only 12 seconds away. And, your opponent does have log, he does have fireball. It depends whether or not you have the Inferno Tower variation or the Tesla variation.
Yeah, exactly.
But Inferno Tower variation is going to give you a huge advantage as this game goes on.
Paolo gets aggressive here with the rocket on top of the 2 Zappies. Not a bad play, but we'll see how Eric wants to take his advantage here. And he sets up with an RG in the back, a Knight to respond. And now you see these Skellies being cycled from that tombstone. I think the idea there is to try to catch the Inferno Tower.
And I love that he protected his Princess. It's, I talked about it a couple weeks ago. It's going to be the Princess Protection Program all day, every day when you're running Logbait. That's the most important card in the deck. And right there we do see he does have the Inferno Tower. He does have the Quick Cycle, the Princess, the Rocket. I mean, this is a great matchup for him. And yes, the Rocket is kind of aggressive, only being played on top of a tombstone, but your defenses are always so nice. He cannot take out these Inferno Towers.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see when he wants to pop the Skelly King ability. You can see really overloading up front with the Skellies, with the Fishermen, trying to catch that Inferno Tower. Now just gives a lot of great rocket value and should still be able to get Inferno Tower down late here. There we go. Inferno is in. Zappies will be distracted by maybe the Goblin Gang. No, decides to just let him go. Good play there as well as the second RG comes down. But the Inferno should not be enough. I believe the Zappy was on the Inferno there to reset.
So right here, this is where it starts getting somewhat difficult. We see the rocket, so can he get the
right?
log off
Yeah.
as well? 11 HP, tower is going to go down. Paolo with a great game number 3, a great reset, a great deck choice. And Eric, he was able to get game 2. But, you know, I think it is, I think you still have the momentum when you have that game 1 win. Your opponent does know that he doesn't deserve that second win. So you still have that advantage, and I love this deck choice from Paolo to just give yourself a chance. Give yourself a deck where you can outplay.
Yeah, and look at the numbers there, too. I mean, the sample size for the exact matchup is pretty small with only 14, but then you look at the larger one, 1,400 matches, and it's only a 28% win rate to 72 there with this old school log bait deck, and it was really all about those aggressive rockets, like you said, AC. 4 of them came down on top of the tower, or excuse me, 3 of them came down on top of the tower. 1 came down at the bridge to clean up a giant skeleton fisherman, or excuse me, Skeleton King Fisherman and a Royal Giant push. But Paolo was aggressive early on, an immediate barrel, Princess at the bridge, and he kept that pressure up the whole time because I think he knew he had this matchup locked down as long as only a couple things didn't happen. He was overwhelmed by skeletons and they blocked the Inferno Tower, or somehow Zappies would get in front or on top of the Inferno as well, and then create a path for that RG and second RG at the bridge. I loved what we saw. I have no notes. You know, you called who you thought would be on top of that set, and Paolo just played it excellently. And I love that he was able to reset. Like you said, you have to be able to do that at the highest level. And it's true. If you're Eric, you don't really get to feel the joys or feel that confidence build of actually outplaying someone and beating them, right? You're just kind of given a free reset. You lose 8 cards that maybe you would like to have back because you did pick up the win, but you have none of that momentum. So yeah, really, really great set there from Paolo, and a bit of a surprising one in terms of the deck. We haven't seen classic log bait like that in, I can't even tell you how long.
Yeah, no, I was actually thinking about it because a 7 out of 8, you know, with the matchup, you have to assume that it would just be Fire Spirit instead of Ice Spirit. And so when I would, and with that, I would assume the Ice Spirit probably helps the matchup because you get to freeze everything. You can rocket everything. It's easier to rocket. It's easier to get the Princess chip. And so that would just kind of even sway the matchup even more in the RG's favor. So yeah, just shocking that he used log bait, and really fun that he used it. I hope Morton took some notes and hopefully he's thinking that maybe he can pull that off as well.
Well, I think we should be going to Morton next. Maybe not 100%, but I do know that Morton and Schwarzen will be playing against one another, and then it will be Furkan and Hugo. And of course, I believe Matt and Mugi. Here we go, Matt and Mugi. Matt, bottom of your screen. Mugi, defending world champion at the top, coming out with that Golden Knight again.
Golden Knight placed in the back, uses the dash at 10 elixir, so that way he does not leak. As I say that, he does start leaking. Mega Minion and Skeleton King in response from Matt. So Mugi going to go back to the deck that he had success with, and Matt going to be using Lava.
Yeah, Mugi doing a nice lineup there with the Magic Archer to clean up the Skelly, and of course the Mega Minion. Now, once again, Magic Archer getting good value.
Does not make it to the tower. I was really expecting chip damage to appear, but that is not the case. Still a healthy damage advantage on Mugi's end. And here comes the constant pressure. Ghost placed at the bridge forces out a tombstone in response. And a lot of the times when you play that Ghost right there, that's kind of it. But right there, he does recognize what is in his opponent's cycle and gets 2 shots with the Ghost by doing a quick bar barrel as well.
Yeah, and I really do love the call out there on just the non-stop pressure. That's exactly what Mugi needs to do here to make sure his opponent can't set up a big lava push in single elixir. I believe last time Mugi ran this, he did it without the Electro Wizard, so just having the Magic Archer is going to be a bit of a task later on in the game to control these pushes from the skies.
And drill placed on top of the tower. Magic Archer will be taken out by the Skeleton King. Arrows in response, but there we go. He does have the Ewiz, and he does have more of the same constant pressure. Ewiz will take out the lava because he has to spend that 3 elixir on defense, and that is just great offensive pressure, but also just not the smoothest push from Matt. You can't be in a position where you're defending and you let your Lava Hound be taken off the map like that.
And I love that NATO there. The NATO to pull those two units together on the right-hand side. It gets just enough damage on the tower to where they're pretty much even. And now you see Matt having to use his miner defensively. The Magic Archer still getting a ton of value. Goes aggressive cannon cart at the bridge. No elixir in hand. Late tombstone probably. There is the tombstone. And Mugi is doing a very good job so far in this matchup. Ahead by 1100 HP in both lanes. That goes just a hair shorter now with that connection on the left-hand side.
And that lava is very suspect. You got to be careful about not being able to defend well enough. You see the left tower get down to 350 and a barb shot as well. So 158 and no response on the right side. Skeleton King does come out, but it doesn't matter. Golden Knight takes the tower.
What beautiful understanding of the matchup, the macro, the constant pressure, always continuing pushes and counter pushes in either lane did not matter. And you can see there with the matchup, whether it is 1,100 people or 270 people, Mugi just played through a tough matchup. I mean, yes, having, and he did run the same version earlier with the Electro Wizard and the Magic Archer plus the NATO, so it is going to fare a little bit better against a deck like this. But, I mean, man, that was, he took him to school. That was a masterclass.
Yeah, I mean, everything was done brilliantly. The bar barrel, I don't know why that's stuck in my head, but the bar barrel with the ghost in order to get the ghost to the tower forces out the Mega Minion, then he can still play more elixir. I mean, everything was done brilliantly. And Lava, even though it's one of the safer decks, you still have to have a really good baseline knowledge of how to play that deck, because you couldn't afford, if you're gonna lava up, and I think he lavaed up when it was like double elixir, but then he also used arrows on defense, he also used the miner on defense, so his lava was completely taken off the map by a singular Ewis, and you can never allow that to happen. You have to let the right lane go. You have to go in with the flying machine, the skeleton dragons, everything, anything and everything, and then the miner in the back. It is required of you to just do a full send, and right there he did not do that. He allowed his opponent to outplay. And that will happen when your opponent is Mugi, but you have to be playing it perfectly, and right there just wasn't the case.
Yeah, it's you know, it's one of those situations where you look at that matchup, and anytime you talk to any great Lava player or even a great coach like EV7, Eric is a phenomenal coach, a world champion, and he's a guy that loves playing Lava Hound, and you know, he knows, and he's always said to me, you have to know when you need to take a lot of damage or sacrifice a tower just to create some offense. And that is something that we never saw in game number 1. So Matt probably a bit shaken here going into game number 2, as Mugi did run the table there. Just absolutely phenomenal gameplay. Matt decides to go with a old version of Hog EQ with Firecracker and Valkyrie. And Mugi decides to go with the facelifted version. The evolved version, most likely going to have Giant Skeleton as his last card.
So the question is for Mugi, can he get past the Teslas, or is he going to try and Earthquake Cycle? If both players go with the Earthquake Cycle, I think Mugi will have the advantage. But the problem is, you know, you do have the advantage not having Firecracker in this matchup, but your opponent does have Tesla, and so it is always going to be incredibly difficult to get your Hog to the actual tower.
So this time we see a cannon up very high here from Mugi, and because of that, I was going to say we're going to see a Firecracker connection, but a great job there using the Skellies to distract for one shot. Yes, the Earthquake comes in and the Splash, and Mugi now down by a couple hundred HP, but that AQ does go invisible and will get at least one shot on tower.
Fire Spirit does stay alive. Cannon will be placed in response. No Hog shots on top of the tower, so 24-14, 24-50 as we head into double elixir. And I mean, it really is going to be insanely difficult for him to get actual damage on top of the tower. This Hog needs to get a shot, and right there it doesn't. So I would say Matt has a strong advantage as this game goes on.
Yeah, I really like that Matt held on that Hog right before we got into double elixir. It just showed some good patience there from him and understanding of the matchup once again. And Mugi, like you said, just kind of doing everything and anything he can to try to create some offensive pressure, but those Teslas are brutal.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting if he tries to go Archer Queen cycled in the very back on the right lane, you know, as this game goes on, because otherwise it's just so difficult for him to get any sort of offensive pressure.
A last-second Tesla up high means that a log has to come down. Mugi does not get a shot on the right-hand lane, but he does get some more damage there on the left. And this is just brilliant. I mean, Mugi, who knows if he's going to win this game or not, but the fact that he is now in the lead when it really felt like Matt had the advantage. He gets another hog shot there. King Tower activation is putting in work. 11:47 to 18:12. And I just love watching this guy play Clash, man.
Yeah, I think we could be done possibly with seeing hogs on offense on Mugi's end. As I say that, he hogs. Just because, you know, the earthquakes are really going to be what takes out the tower. I don't think it's going to be necessary for him to hog up. And right there, that Archer Queen's ability was popped at the exact right time. Does take out the Valk. And yeah, he's just in a great spot. And a beautiful play defending while also setting himself up for success and a missed Tesla.
That is going to do it. Mugi, unstoppable, undefeated on the day. Already got a golden ticket to World Finals, but he's doing it once again here at Royale Masters, just putting on a clinic. And that was such a great matchup. I'm curious to see the numbers and see who that matchup was really heavily in favor for, if it kind of comes down to a split down the middle. But that, I mean, it just felt like he just outplayed him again.
Yeah, the gameplay that we've seen from Mugi today has just been otherworldly. I mean, even the Valk at the bridge at the very end of the game, but also the Skeleton's High to push it to the push the Hog so he could cannon outside of Earthquake range. I mean, everything was calculated on Mugi's end, and just it was so nice. The timing was always great. He was going in with Hogs when his opponent was going in with Hogs, so he could always either A, cannon up and he wouldn't have to worry about the Earthquake, or B, you know, Earthquake with his Hog and then try and defend in, you know, as minimal way as possible, so that way he could get any kind of damage, any kind of like elixir advantage right there. I mean, that was great from Mugi, and Mugi has shown a level that, I mean, we've only seen Mugi in like one other set so far, but Mugi's shown a level that no one else has shown today.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the gameplay has just been absolutely perfect. The understanding of the matchups, the macro, all the small micro plays. I mean, even just those Skellies going opposite lane in that last game just to stop one more firecracker shot coming down. Because, you know in that matchup that's basically a mirror matchup, that one firecracker shot could be the deciding factor in the game. So Mugi does a great job there. We saw that AQ ability popped at the perfect time late game that sniped the firecracker, then got on the Valkyrie, which then led to the high Valkyrie plus cannon, what you were just gushing about. Everything he has done has been right. He's played through good matchups. He's played through bad matchups. And we'll see, you know, what he wants to change up, or if he's going to change things up at all. I'm looking back here at kind of his game log from yesterday and looking at what he was playing a lot. He did it all the way across the board. He did, you know, the 6-man graveyard deck with Cannon Cart and Snowball. He ran E-Giant Mirror. He ran the deck that you love, AC, which is the Mega Knight Zap Miner deck with Wall Breakers. The deck that we saw him run twice today already, the Drill Golden Knight deck. He even ran the Expo deck with Elixir Pump and was able to beat Rosanova with that. So he has been doing it all. And today he's been doing it a little bit more with that Drill Golden Knight deck, but we've only seen 4 games from him. And if you're watching Mugi and you're looking at this repertoire of decks that he's played in yesterday in today's competition, I'd be a little scared, man. I'd be a lot scared, actually.
Yeah, if I'm Furkan, I'm definitely happy that I'm not hearing that I have to win 3 sets today, and that it was just 1 set right there, because, you know, they will be matching up in the next set if he's able to take out Hugo. But right here, we do have Morton versus Schwarzen, one of the matchups that's just really, really fun to watch. Both of these players have been in the scene for a long time at this point, and a great Golden Knight stops the Skeleton King before it can pop its ability.
Yeah, 2 good friends, both Germans, both excellent players that have really been, you know, guys that you talk about putting in that 10,000 hours. They put in the 20,000 hours. Schwarzen, the first person to ever get 1,000 Grand Challenge wins. He's now at 1,121, which is just absolutely insane to me that he's won that many Grand Challenges.
How many do you have?
0. I have 0.
Okay.
I don't play grand challenges. I don't lower myself to that, AC. I'm only a classic challenge man. I got my 100th classic challenge win recently.
Oh, congratulations. That's actually, I don't want to take anything away because, you know, gems are expensive. So I will say, you know, I do want to give
That's like
full
having
props to you.
a trophy wall filled with participation trophies. I feel like that's who I am, is that guy.
I think I left up my like 6th place in swimming from like 2004 just because I'll never get a better swimming record.
And even that is more impressive than my 100 classic challenge wins. Schwarzen with 2.2 million cards won from those grand challenges. And then obviously Morton's resume speaks for itself, as he gets some good damage in on that left-hand tower and right-hand tower, but now having to deal with a very, very minor counter push is Morton. King Tower will clean that up with one brawler shot coming in. Morton ahead by 400.
Yeah, that King Tower activation, I'm pretty sure it was a Fisherman pull on the Magic Archer. It's going to change the game. You now have Tombstone, Fisherman, and an activated King Tower going against a funky E-Giant deck that really is going to rely on trying to stack support troops. But when you're trying to stack support troops and your support troops are both fireballable, that's going to be just a difficult task and just a really strong spot for Morton. And I like this from Schwarzen, giving up a lot of damage, yes, but you are going to have a healthy counter push, and that's the only way to try and win this game, by allowing for you know, just trying to set up those healthy counter pushes.
And these Mother Witches just not getting what Schwarzen wants, really, in terms of where they're placed and when they're placed, but damage still in on both lanes. Morton's Mother Witch plus the Piggy gets some good damage on that right-hand tower, bring it down to 526, but then Schwarzen gets some great E-Giant connections there on the left-hand lane. Still separated by about 1100 HP. Morton goes pedal to the metal, stays on the offensive. Another fireball in for that Mother Witch, just like you called AC. It really is tough to stack those support troops when your opponent has fireball, and that shot comes in, that's going to do it.
Yeah, Morton with the simple victory. You know, placing the Mother Witch on top of your Crown Tower when you know your opponent is trying to fireball cycle, I kind of get what he's doing, but also you just can't really be giving up that kind of play at the end of the game right there. But it didn't matter. I mean, Morton with a great King Tower activation early on, great defense, great matchup. When all of those combine against you, Morton usually wins.
Yeah, I mean, that King Tower activation, it's not really incredibly difficult to pull off, but it is incredibly important to pull off if you have that Magic Archer plus Fishboy combination. You know you're going up against E-Giant. That King Tower really puts in work. You can see the matchup also in favor of Morton, whether it's with 7 or with 6 cards. It's probably the only time that this exact matchup has been played, because it is such a, like you said, a bit of a funky E-Giant deck. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you look at how heavy that E-Giant deck is, how expensive it is to get all the way around, and it feels like the E-Giant decks that have been the most successful really do succeed based off of their incredibly quick cycle, their cheap cycle, and then having Mirror to be able to get that second E-Giant down.
Yeah, it's odd because, you know, I don't want to come after the deck too much, because you have to recognize that, you know, Schwarzen is only doing that against Morton. He's not doing it against any random player. He's doing it because he expects Hunter, or he expects Hog, he expects Miner, he expects any of the decks that he would have expected, he would have done really well against. And I can't remember what we saw in the first set, but I think it was a Hog Earthquake deck, and I think that would have had, you know, a really solid matchup against it. So yes, I'm not a huge fan of the deck. I think he could have tried finding a great matchup while also having a bit more synergy together if he doesn't get, you know, the snipe that he's looking for. But also, I think that's kind of Schwarzen's game plan. I think he's okay with a bad matchup in game number 1. He's okay with even losing 0-2 because of bad matchups, because he thinks that's what puts him in the best position to win. So I didn't love the deck, but I also fully understand it, and I'm fully okay with having that as your deck choice for game number 1.
Yeah, and you look back here at what Morton's been running on the day against Bruzani. First, it was the deck that we just saw, except for he used Lightning instead of Fireball. So that was a really nice adjustment for Morton there. And then you look at the other two, and like you said, it's the Hog EQ deck with Skellies and Delivery. And then the other one was the Mortar deck with Dark Goblin, Skarmy, Bats, Miner, all those things. So I agree. I think that, Schwarzen was going for a better matchup there in terms of that Mother Witch being able to find more targets that would get more hogs on the board, and then getting good piercing damage from that Magic Archer, maybe on top of a defensive building or on top of mortars, what have you. But Morton decides to go back to something that he liked yesterday and liked earlier today, and I do like Morton playing RG because he does have such a great understanding of matchups and the macro of the game that it does seem like he's very good at defending for a long time, which is one of the things I actually think Morton has struggled with the most in his career is his early gameplay with decks that cycle very quickly. I think he just gets a little more aggressive than he'd like, a little ahead of himself, or maybe he just doesn't think about one thing that his opponent could do that allows that 600-700 damage early on. But then you talk about the final couple minutes of gameplay. Morton has always shown that he's one of the best in the world in overtime. So, I like what he did to slow things down a little bit here at game number 1.
Yeah, and it really is interesting that, early game Morton is not the same thing as late game Morton.
Yeah.
And I have to wonder if it's because of, streaming for 8 hours in a row, and so you don't really think as much in the beginnings of each game. Maybe, it's definitely different with competitive versus ladder because, in ladder, you're going to know your opponent's decks a lot of the time. You know that you can get away with this. And so he kind of has that same mentality without even consciously recognizing it. Because, with someone as talented as Morton, it doesn't make sense that he struggles at the beginning of games. And I really do have to wonder if it's because of streaming, if it's because he's playing, 8-10 hours a day when he's in full grind mode, that might actually hurt him in that aspect.
For years now, right? Since 2018, 2017, he's been putting in that amount of time, and then the content creation has gone through the roof. Yeah, I think the point that you make is really sound and kind of an interesting one about maybe him getting a bit desensitized to early game play because he plays so many games, he streams so much, he creates so much content, he's been in every top of the ladder competitive conversation for half a decade now, that you do wonder if sometimes he's like, all right, yeah, we'll just go into this game, we'll see what happens. Then halfway through, he's like, oh wait, no, I'm Morton. I need to buckle down. I need to figure this out. But it is crazy. You talk about consistency, and this dude has really, really done it. Rich always likes to talk. He's got 2 channels with over, 500,000 subscribers now in total, I believe, with the 2 of them combined. I love his content. I love that he can play every deck out there. And that's another thing about, the dual-sided coin is that, yes, he might be desensitized because he creates so much content, but because he creates so much content and streams so much, I don't actually find him with a weak spot in terms of decks that he can play. I really feel like he has mastered every single archetype there is out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I don't get to check out his streams all that often. Maybe if I had a better sleeping schedule, I might be able to just a bit better. But yeah, I'll go on his streams once every week, once every couple weeks, and it's always a new deck. It's always a new deck, or it's a meta deck where he's really trying to learn how to play. I've seen him ask questions, and it's not often where you see pros really wanting to learn, really trying to improve themselves when they are as talented as he is. When asking questions is, it's how you get better, but we've seen egos on players where they want to figure this out themselves.
Right.
They want to only practice with these couple players, but he is very vocal with just trying to improve himself. And so yeah, that's just Morton.
Yeah, I always see him out there on Twitter too. Any pros want to practice? Any pros want to practice dual mode? Any pros this? Any pros that? And yeah, it's just that consistency again. So here we go, resetting for game number 2 here. We're back into the action. Schwarzen, bottom of your screen. Morton at the top. Magic Archer will line up here early on top of that giant skeleton for some great damage from Morton. Should get 1 more shot, 2 more shots. Doesn't get the 3rd, but brings the tower all the way down below 3K. and now Morton going to have to deal with this graveyard. He goes high with the delivery, now with the great dash there from the Golden Knight. And, that's trouble there. Our AQ does get on top of the tower. And this is kind of what we just talked about, right? He goes hyper-aggressive, he gets good damage in, but he ends up overextending himself, and he's now down by 600 HP.
Yeah, I did think that the Magic Archer was a little bit aggressive when your opponent defends with the Dark Prince on top of your drill. You're basically, that's 8 offensive elixir. I mean, yes, the Magic Archer is getting damage on the troops, but it's basically 8 elixir that you spent on offense in your first 14 elixir spent. It just does feel like a little bit too much. You know, solid defense. It was a great Golden Knight, great dash. And yes, you do have the delivery, which just gives immense value every single time it gets played. But yeah, it really does feel like it was played just way too early, and you know, he could have relaxed a little bit more on to try and set himself up.
And he goes with a mini P.E.K.K.A. here, so this is a really interesting drill deck. Mini P.E.K.K.A. and Ewiz and delivery in here, so no cannon cart, probably no barb barrel, and an interesting deck that Morton decided to run. Maybe worried a little bit about E-Giant.
Ewiz is not going to be protected by any card. He's not going to try and go in with the drill, so just going to be a full reset right there. 1423 HP for Morton, 2089 lowest tower for Schwarzen. These giant skeletons are getting value. They will get more value being able to take out all the zappies right there. And we are going to see him just go full out on the left side. He doesn't want to allow his opponent to stack. He wants to be able to just defend, and then eventually either, you know, get the right counter push and go in on the left lane, or, you know, split, you know, get some split lane pressure and then be able to attack on the right. There we go. We are going to see the right side attack.
So mini P.E.K.K.A. sets the line up high, but Dark Prince will be enough. On top of that, the Barb Barrel comes in. Now going to need a delivery late. That is a lot of damage done from Morton there, down to 451 on that right-hand tower. And really 2 healthy towers here for Schwarzen.
Yeah, I mean, a solid push right there, getting the Dark Prince up to allow for him to go in on offense. But Schwarzen, okay, there we go, hasn't shown any spells, so I was going to be interested to see if it was going to be Snowball, Arrows, Poison, Fireball, whatever. And right there, the Poison will mean that he only needs 1 more Graveyard, and he should be able to lock things up. But this is a very aggressive push.
Yeah. But I guess he caught Morton looking, right? He saw that Morton goes super aggressive as well. They both looked like they probably sold out most of their elixir, and Schwarzen just beats him to it. I don't love that play, because if anything were to go wrong, then he's given way too much leeway to Morton on that left-hand side for him to maybe steal the game. But I think Schwarzen looked at it and goes, there's just no way he can defend if he just spent that much. And you can see there Morton just not really finding a place to use that NATO. Unfortunately, I guess maybe the one time he could have used it defensively to clean up those skellies, there was probably a Dark Prince or Barb Barrel too close, and he would have pulled those into the tower. I'm not sure, but I feel like that NATO not being used is always, we've seen it a couple times. I just feel like there probably was a place to use it at some point in that game, right?
Yeah, I think a major thing. Okay, so I think a major thing is, you know, what we talked about before the game even started, that he gets a little bit too aggressive on offense. And so from that point on, you know, when you're having these Magic Archer decks, you kind of want to be going same lane, because your Magic Archer will be able to get tower damage, but, you know, when it's getting that tower damage, it's still locking onto troops. You're NATOing all the troops together. You're trying to get the chip damage, getting the Giant Skeleton low, getting the Dark Prince lower in health, you know, just trying to get that chip damage. But when you're forced to swap lanes, you no longer get that opportunity to have those beautiful, you know, Giant Skeleton protecting your Magic Archer pushes. Right. And so he never really had that opportunity to have the offensive pressure with the Magic Archer at the bridge. And yeah, I mean, I would have loved to see him try and pull off some crazy Magic Archer NATO plays, but instead we just saw the NATO be completely unusable.
Yeah, I mean, I even would have been happy to see some NATO plus Golden Knight plays and then use the Magic Archer to clean up the graveyard, right? If you're not going to be able to get that offensive presence that you want with the Magic Archer, you're not able to line up, you keep changing lanes or whatever it might be, or just the way that Schwarzen's defending it doesn't leave you open to that, then I think you probably want to try to save that Magic Archer to play some graveyard defense. It's the best option that he has. You can play the Magic Archer behind the King Tower, and then you can probably set the line a little bit easier up high with the Mini P.E.K.K.A. or the Royal Delivery. I was a little surprised to see the Mini P.E.K.K.A. in that deck. You think he was specifically looking for maybe another E-Giant matchup or something? Because we saw E-Giant in game 1. Obviously, Schwarzen lost that game. He could ran E-Giant back. But the Mini P.E.K.K.A. and the Delivery, a bit of a surprising little twist in this drill deck.
Yeah, I definitely think, you know, it definitely had to be there for a reason. I like the Mini P.E.K.K.A. I think it can get a lot of value. It's just why switch from the most successful deck? I think Mugi's Variation is by far the greatest deck in the game when it comes to drill, but also just the top 3, top 5 deck in the game.
Yeah.
And I know Morton's practiced with that. I know Morton knows how to use it. And I mean, the Ghost is so strong because of the pressure where you have to defend correctly. You can't pull it to the middle because it's placed all the way off to the side. So you know, you're forced to place your troops in weird spots in order to take, you know, to get the aggro from the Royal Ghost, from the RG. And so, yeah, I would have liked to see the original version. I don't think it was necessary for him to get fancy and use a Mini P.E.K.K.A. drill variation. Yeah,
you know, and in being able to have that cannon cart would have been really, really nice to help with the opposite lane pressure. The Mini P.E.K.K.A. just kind of got eaten alive by the Dark Prince plus the Barb Barrel. So there we go. Game number 2 in the books. We're going to go to game number 3 here in a moment. Morton wins game number 1, rocking that Royal Giant deck. Schwarzen takes game number 2, going to Graveyard. Also a bit of an interesting Graveyard deck, you know, a little different than what we'd seen. Fisherman, Archer Queen, Giant Skelly, Dark Prince, Zappies, and then no Snowball. You know, we were looking for the spell, ended up being Poison. Barb Barrel did a really good job tanking late game there for the Graveyard. And you know, a good point that you made earlier about the other Graveyard deck is even more so for this deck. I think you do lose the AQ, but you're going to lose a champion because you should be playing one every single game. I guess the only thing that you really can't play at this point is, I guess, maybe just Royal Giant, because the Fisherman is so important in that deck. But it still feels like there's a lot of good opportunities for Schwarzen to play anything. He could even go back to E-Giant if he wants. And we'll see if Morton wants to counter again or look to counter that with something like a Mini P.E.K.K.A. or, you know, something that we've seen be really successful, man, is Mama P.E.K.K.A. with Ram Rider and Lightning. That's been a great deck.
That's right. It really has had a lot of success. And I mean, every time we see it have any kind of matchup, it just, I would say of the, you know, 5 or so times that we've seen it be played, I would say at least 3 of those times it hard countered. It didn't counter, it hard countered. And so I really do love that that's in the meta now. Morton apparently does not agree. I can still hold out hope that Schwarzen agrees with us, though.
Yeah, Morton running... I don't know what this is. I was going to say, with Mega Minion and Musketeer, we have seen Graveyard past, but still just don't quite understand.
Poison as well, it does make you lean more towards Graveyard again. Really would, I feel like once we see that 6th card, we can know exactly where he wants to go. So Schwarzen going to be using the 6-man with the Royal Hogs. Morton going to be running a minor control deck. Last card should be a Log or Snowball. And so this is just going to be an interesting thing. Morton's just looking to try and defend. And then Schwarzen is just trying to, you know, get that one really solid push that makes it through. And yeah, this is going to be a fun matchup right here. You do have the Mega Minion for the Flying Machine over the middle. You do have the Musketeer, the Poison for the Mother Witch. So I would assume that Morton has to be feeling good about this matchup.
Yeah, a lot of good damage comes in there on that left-hand lane. Miner goes to town on the right-hand side, but he has to eat the Golden Knight dash here, just not leaving himself enough elixir And I mean, wow, for as quickly as we thought Morton might be feeling good about this matchup, that is a lot of damage to take early on. He has very, very little splash damage, which is going to make it tough to defend against the 6-man push with the Royal Hogs behind. Yes, he does have the deliveries, so Schwarzen will probably continue to split them. He goes all in one lane here. Delivery going to come down on top of just the pigs, so the flying machine has free reign to help clean everything up.
And I like this. You can get the miner in the very back, and you can actually start, getting some really solid pressure right here. Musketeer does not take out, and there we go. The Mother Witch is able to snipe the Musketeer with just a little bit of health left. We see the Mega Minion placed directly on top. The tower, I don't think will be able to take out the Mega Minion in time, but I could be wrong. And there we go. The Mega Minion does not give off, the death spawn from the Mother Witch.
So Morton sets up with a defensive mortar here, and Schwarzen happy to take the arrow's value. Gets the Skellies down a second late, so Flying Machine snipes the mortar, and then distracted by the recruits, ends up taking care of the Flying Machine as the Mega Minion of Morton. But trouble in for Morton with only 178 remaining and no counter push coming down the lane.
Yeah, this log plus arrows is just getting so much value every single time. Musketeer at the bridge will not be able to do anything. Flying Machine will be able to clean up the Mega Minion, clean up the Miner, and just a really good Mother Witch right there. Not going in with the Royal Hogs because it could have been defended by the Golden Knight plus the delivery. Just a really great game from Schwarzen, and unfortunately Morton shall be knocked out in round number 2.
Yeah, and it's the curse of the caster here. 2 times in a row, it felt like Morton just really overextended himself early on in games, especially in single elixir there, and he just got absolutely punished by Schwarzen. Now, this is an interesting conversation in terms of when we go to World Finals, it will be in person. You won't have someone in your ear, as we saw Morton do at DreamHack. When he won that event, it was a very similar thing. A lot of pros talking about, I didn't have the ability to count elixir. I didn't have the opportunity to have my coach or my analyst in my ear to tell me, like, they're at this elixir, this is what you should play, this is most likely what they have in their hand. All that conversation not being there. Well, we're still online. So Schwarzen, really every single time that Morton extended himself just a little bit too far, he punished him brutally. And in games 2 and games 3, that was more than enough to just kind of ride that wave until the end. The moment that you see your opponent start cycling arrows, you know you're in trouble, right? Because they're not worried about that 3 elixir. They know that they're so close to the finish line, the arrows will eventually get them there, which means you have just really, really put yourself in a bad spot. I'm one of the biggest Morton fans there are, and I still hate when I see him do that early in games, just giving up a little bit too much.
Yeah, I actually do love the arrow synergy with the Golden Knight because, we see it all the time with Zappy staying alive just barely because you only have, the NATO plus the Golden Knight, and so they still stay alive with 1% of their health. Right there, it was always getting value on top of the Musketeer, the Mortar, and then the Golden Knight dash is able to take everything out, or at least get it low where you can also log on offense. And yeah, Schwarzen just played a brilliant game overall. I thought it was great with a recognition to go in with Golden Knight at the bridge when his opponent went in with the poison on the Mother Witch. But you're totally right. Clash Royale is really cool with competitive, how there's it feels like it's 8 different games. You have the LAN competitions, then you have the online competitions where you can count elixir. You have Royale Masters Edition where you can repeat cards. You have set or just the regular duel format where you can't repeat. I never really kind of recognized it until you started talking about it, but there's a lot of different game modes within the game mode of Clash Royale. And it's pretty neat that Clash Royale can still feel fresh that way.
Yeah, that's very, very true. It still feels incredibly fresh, even after all this time and the different formats that we've gotten. I do absolutely love dual mode. I think RoyaleMSTRS has come up with a great twist on it. I think more will be discovered as the tournament goes on, especially when we get into our finals and we have a lot more best of 5s going on. I think that the best of 5s so far have actually been really great. I would imagine that trend would continue on, but it is one of the newer things this year that we're seeing is best of fives being reintroduced a good amount in different formats, in different competitions with the dual mode. And those games 4 and 5 are really, really interesting ones, and why an analyst is 100% imperative. So here we go. Game number 1. Furkan, who should be already qualified for our finals. He's now playing just for fun or with house money, and obviously wants to win some more money of his own. Hugo at the top still needs to climb that last hurdle, get over that last little hurdle of his that is just separating him from an A-tier player to getting to that S-tier level.
It is so impressive that Furkan can go in with this E-Giant mirror deck, you know, whatever variation it is. You know, this time he's using the bats, sometimes he'll use the Mega Minion, sometimes he'll use, you know, a Magic Archer variation, whatever it is, because you shouldn't be allowed to repeat, you know, to have your opponent know you're going to be using a deck like E-Giant. E-Giant just, it does struggle when your opponent knows what you're trying to run, and he still has success with it. So it just shows how great he is with this overall deck, and already taking a lead against a very difficult matchup. The Archer Queen, Mortar, Poison, Log will be difficult to get past, but so far he's shown that it is difficult, but not impossible.
I was just going to say, you know, you look at that damage that came in on that last push from the level 13 E-Giant, and there are so many options available for Hugo here to get that single target DPS down. Even the guards are not bad to help kind of with that E-Giant initially, and to keep the Golden Knight from getting too far of a dash. And, you know, Furkan just knows exactly when to pressure, exactly when to defend, knows what's best to you know, mirror. And I think we're going to see it here again. Yeah, there it is, the level 13 E-Giant in the left-hand lane, because that E-Giant is so very healthy in the right-hand lane, and now the Mortar out of cycle. Hugo here having to play guards to defend, and he's in trouble.
Yeah, this is a lot of pressure right here. 2 Elixir for Hugo. I don't think he has another E-Giant just yet, but he might already have an E-Giant back in cycle. Golden Knight will get to the tower if he does have the dash. Otherwise, the guards will be able to take it. And there we go. We do see the dash on the tower. And again, we could see another E-Giant. He hasn't used anything. And the problem with that is the Mortar will get a lot of damage. But I think he is just content with trying to win the game right here.
And we saw Bats put in a lot of work in that right-hand lane, getting tanked for by the level 11 E-Giant, but the Bats did get the tower to bring it down to 1665. And now this level 13 E-Giant is on the tower. That is GG, well played. And I'm excited to see what the matchup numbers are for this, because as you called out, AC, this is definitely not an easy matchup for Furkan. And Hugo actually being one of the better Mortar control players in the game right now. And yeah, so the numbers are pretty dead even, but when you have Furkan playing that deck, if the numbers are even, he's going to win. And that is a matchup that Hugo does not want to lose.
I mean, it is we haven't seen dominance with a specific deck like this in so long. I mean, this is reminiscent of, you know, like Lapo and Igor with their Mortar decks when they were fresh to the league. I mean, this is so fun to be able to witness this time and time again. You know your opponent is going to use E-Giant. You know your opponent is going to switch 1 card, maybe 2 cards at most, but he is going to stick with the mirror. He might switch spells, but he will stick with the mirror, the bomber, the Golden Knight, and the E-Giant. It's those 4 constant cards, and then everything else can kind of be cycled through. And again, he just has so much success. I was so excited to say it. I'm pretty sure he had another E-Giant in cycle at the very end of the game. When he had that Mortar trying to get there in time, it wouldn't have mattered. There would have been another E-Giant cycled at the bridge.
Now, so looking at this from the other side of it, what could Hugo have done differently? Did he need to get more Archer Queens out and rely less on his guards? Or I don't really know. I don't really understand what could have done better other than needing 2 Archer Queens on the board to help clean up. He just didn't seem like he had that single target DPS that he really needed.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. You know, I was going to say maybe he can get more aggressive. Maybe he can go set himself up so that he can have Archer Queen at the bridge whenever he tries to E-Giant, because then it's going to always force out, you know, some kind of response like Bats or, you know, a Bomber or something. And then he can't set up with a double E-Giant. But yeah, I mean, the way it was played, there was no shot. So I think maybe it comes down to just being more aggressive. But that's so difficult because the Bats always got insane value. And even if you get more aggressive, you can Golden Knight on defense, and then that means you're still going to have that E-Giant, you know, that mirrored E-Giant possibility, because the Golden Knight, you know, obviously can't get mirrored. So it's just so tough, and it was just beautiful cycling from Furkan, and just another win another win with the E-Giant. Just incredible from Furkan.
I know, I love the bats. I really do. They're just, I don't think we've seen the bats version from anyone else yet. At least in this competition. You know, we saw the Mega Minion version a lot yesterday, but those bats, when he would play them, they always got so much value. We would see very late Fire Spirits, kind of desperation Fire Spirits to clean up. And now Furkan going back to something that you and I are also a really big fan of right now, which is Flying Machine with arrows and piggies.
So this Barbaro should be able to take out the Archer Queen if the tower does hit it once, and there we go. We do see the tower get hit, so no invisibility used on Hugo's end. Hugo looks like he's just kind of running it back. I don't know if it was this specific variation, but the guards plus Miner plus Archer Queen, and probably going to be a Mortar as well. Furkan just going to set up with the Goblin Cage, and already almost into double Elixir, taking no damage whatsoever. This is a great spot for Furkan.
Yeah, so it does look like it's the exact same. The only change-up that we could now be seeing is, will it be the Giant Skeleton, or will it maybe be the Valkyrie? And for Hugo's sake, he's going to hope it's the Valkyrie. It is not. It is the Giant Skeleton. Arrows come down on top of the bats, and this is going to be a boatload of damage once again early on. And Furkan has been playing exceptional through the entire run of Royale Masters. He's been an absolute joy to watch, and I love, like you were saying, AC, yes, he can always win with E-Giant, but he's been doing it with so many other decks as well. He's shown how versatile he is, how well-versed he is, and I'm just excited to see him in our finals.
Yeah, absolutely. 45 seconds left. Dark Prince will go back to the tower. Okay, no, it does lock onto the Brawler and not the tower. Again, we see the offensive arrows be forced out onto the bats. But not only is it getting the bats, but it's also getting that chip damage on top of the tower. It is getting the Giant Skeleton just a little bit less healthy. And these Brawlers, or these Dark Princes, or these Flying Machines, if they're able to lock onto the Giant Skeleton, have just done so much damage to it, and just so much value every time any of them get played.
Furkan finally drops the 6-man down, so Hugo just having an incredibly difficult time getting these mortars on tower. It'll be the Brawler, and then the focus will go to the Dark Prince, and then it'll go back to the Brawler. And then when you don't have either of those in cycle, you just play the 6-man in front of your Princess Tower. Although this Archer Queen is getting a lot of value here for Hugo. And an AQ that stays alive that long can really turn the tide of the game. Now Furkan on his heels. AQ comes down, but that means Mortar going to be on the tower here because it popped that cage. And Hugo doing everything he can to defend here.
Yeah, that was great defense by Furkan, but also great offense from Hugo. Just the fact that he stayed alive is just very, very impressive. We see the Zappy cycled in the middle, so that will be taken out by the Mortar shot. And yes, the Miner is going to be able to get a lot of damage, but we are going to see a full reset from Furkan. And once he gets that full reset, once he finally, you know, is able to set himself up for success, it's tough to stop, because now he's in a situation where he can continue to cycle Royal Hogs at the bridge. He can cycle, you know, the arrows on top of the towers as well. So right here, Mortar does get taken out before it even gets a shot.
Yeah, that's nice placement there on the Mortar, but still doesn't get what Hugo wants out of it. No damage coming from the Royal Pigs there after an arm and a leg is spent by Hugo defensively. Furkan up some Elixir, now going to drop the Dark Prince. Maybe goes high with the recruits here. No, he goes Piggy's opposite lane. How do you feel about that play?
I love it, and mostly I love it. I think that's what you need to be doing. I don't think he's really trying to go in on the left side. I think he's just kind of setting himself up to be able to eventually go back out on the right. But now with 30 seconds left, I think he kind of just has to avoid going in on the left. You know, you're just not going to get the damage you need. 722 to 758, 30 HP separating the two players, and we need to see aggression from both players.
Wow, Hugo uses his poison up high there, not on the top of the Princess Tower, so he does currently not have the damage lead. Now just a set of arrows need to come down for Furkan in that right-hand lane. Hugo does get the poison in, but it's late. Arrows have come down. Furkan should take this game. Wow.
Just brilliant gameplay from Furkan. pressuring the left side, forcing out Mortis in response, going in aggressive, Poison coming down, but it doesn't matter because he is going to be able to get the Royal Hogs onto the tower, forces out the defensive log instead of the offensive log. It was so well timed. I love it when we see these players get that last push, and it's because, you know, they cycled exactly correct. They got the Royal Hogs on the tower with 2 seconds left, and they were able to, you know, get the damage with their snouts all the way down to 350, so he's able to win by 150 HP. Just brilliance from Furkan in this set, and you know, it's Mugi or Furkan at this point. You know, everybody else is just, you know, happy they're not on that side of the bracket.
Yeah, you know, we'll see if Schwarzen has something to say about that as we continue to move on through our day. But I could not agree more. And I think there really was that moment where we were talking about, you know, is this the right play to go opposite lane? And it truly was. Like you said, you were like, I think I love it. I'm pretty sure I love it. Yeah, I think that's where I'm going to land on. And it makes sense, right? Because it started to get those mortars out of the same lane. We did start to feel Hugo take over that right-hand side. He was getting great poison value. The bats were getting great value up high. He was setting the line up high so the arrows couldn't get on top of the tower. So it was that lane change. And then, as you said, the timing of that final 15, 20, 30 seconds was just absolutely brilliant. Even from Hugo, it looked like he had got a good grasp of his cycle. And as we saw, he was able to get the poison back down on top of that Princess Tower with only 4 or 5 seconds remaining. So maybe Hugo off on his timing by just a hair, just a few seconds. But Furkan's was absolutely excellent. Those last split piggies in the middle to pull out that mortar again, to get that poison out up high because of the overload at the bridge, then allowed that final send on the right-hand side with the arrows. Just really, really great stuff. And like we said, you know, I've really enjoyed also the deck versatility that Furkan has shown in terms of whether it's E-Giant, Giant, Piggies. Let's take a look here at our bracket to remind you guys where we're at. We do have one more matchup here in our quarterfinals. Oh, no, excuse me. We are on through to our semifinals. I'm living in the past here. I think I forgot that Mugi came out so much earlier. So we do have Furkan versus Mugi, and then Paolo versus Schwarzen. Those are going to be 2 incredible games for you guys. We are going to take a very, very short break before we get back into our semifinals, and then maybe even another break before we get into our grand finals. But here we go. Royale Masters Gold Edition. We'll be back in 5. We are back with our final four, and when you look at the numbers, I was just looking here, Furkan and Mugi have both not lost a game yet today. Schwarzen was able to 2-0 Ta, 2-1 Morton, and then Paolo has gone to game number 3 in both of his sets. So a little bit more work there for Paolo, but it makes sense when you talk about the experience and the body of work they might have on display. But then when you look at Furkan and his run in Royale Masters and AC Mugi just being Mugi, I think it really does feel like that is our marquee matchup of the day.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that there could be a better match up than Mugi and Igor, but at this point in time, I really think the better matchup is Furkan versus Mugi. I mean, both of those players are so fantastic, are doing so well right now. I mean, you know, it's crazy. I think I might fanboy the winner of this match. Whoever wins this match will be the one that I fanboy harder. I'll say.
Wow. So someone could actually surpass Mugi in AC's book, even if it's just for a week or maybe just an hour. It will be Furkan, so I'm sure all the people in Turkey will be very, very excited if that happens. But that is a very, very tough out. Now, the one nice thing that Furkan has, yes, he's going up against our defending world champion. Mugi already has a golden ticket to World Finals. Furkan is already guaranteed to be in our Royale Masters playoffs where he can earn his own golden ticket. So maybe just a little bit less pressure on him. But then also for Mugi, who walked away with 200K last year, I'm sure the money would be nice. He already has a golden ticket. So it is a very, very interesting matchup for both of them because they have a little bit of a cushion. They're both playing with a little bit of house money. Whereas on the other side of it, Paolo, a relative unknown coming into this day, at least for me. And then Schwarzen, who is an exceptional player. As we said, the most Grand Challenge wins out of anyone to ever play the game. But he does want that golden ticket. He does want to show up at World Finals.
Paolo going to start off with the cannon cart. Almost gets taken out, but not quite. And so it will be able to get its wheels, you know, into position to take out the tower if it does not get shot down. Cannon cart doesn't make it to the tower, but does get the ghost to about 65% health.
Schwarzen showed up a lot in our Clash Royale League rounds last year, but his finishes were pretty high, 64, 40, 36, 44. His best finish was 4th place spot in round number 3, but with all of that adding up, he was not able to make it to our World Finals.
I was actually a little afraid the drill was placed a little bit too quickly, but not the case. Valk is there in response regardless, so it doesn't actually matter. Cannon cart is forced to be played to pull the giant skeleton away from the tower. And a really nice NATO. I mean, obviously, yeah, I mean, just a really nice NATO. Gets a ton of value, gets the Valk down to a manageable amount of health, and then the Magic Archer is able to clean everything up.
So Schwarzen sitting on a 2 elixir lead right now. We'll see what he wants to do when he ticks to 10. Maybe just sets up a push from the back, or maybe he sends a, I was going to say starts another RG push just because, or Royal Ghost just for you, AC. Just because you know it's going to create a little bit of pressure. It's going to have to be responded to. And Paolo knows there's no big spell in this deck, so he just sets all 3 Zappies up to 1 lane.
Zappies do take out the RG, but the giant skeleton will come down the lane. Should be able to set himself up with a nice push right here. Drill is going to come down maybe even a bit early. And there we go. We do see the tower locked onto the drill instead of the giant skeleton. That is a nice Magic Archer. Will be able to get 1 shot and then more shots as well. Locking onto the Archer Queen and still staying alive. Valk is outside of the splash range of the Magic Archer, though.
Yeah, you saw the giant skeleton bomb there, put in some work for Schwarzen, cleaning up all those cleanup troops. 1388 to basically untouched. We'll give Paolo credit where credit's due. 200 damage has been done on that left-hand side, and now he goes with a aggressive Valkyrie plus Graveyard push. Magic Archer offsets the lane that Schwarzen wants to focus on, and a great high line set there with the Golden Knight.
Yeah, really solid Golden Knight. He was on top of the tower as well as the drill. Snowball will come out in response, but it just will not be enough. 423, if he can protect this, it could be game already. We will see the Valk. Does he want to NATO?
There
He does. That could be game.
And that's exactly what you want to see there is the NATO late game. Schwarzen getting aggressive when he needed to. He had the defenses locked, loaded, ready to go. Golden Knight up high, Magic Archer to the opposite lane. I believe it's that Magic Archer that just won the game as well. With that great NATO combination, the Giant Skeleton in front of the Magic Archer to line things up. It looked like it was going to happen. BK Paolo had kind of spelled it out for Schwarzen. It was just, did he want to get aggressive or not? And there you go. 2 NATOs is all it took. 4 Magic Archers putting in great work. And, I mean, that was just a really, really nice game, top to bottom, from Schwarzen.
Yeah, incredibly dominant. I mean, even when I thought he might have spent a little bit... I mean, he tried getting in one graveyard push. He went Valk of the Bridge graveyard, you know, as well with that. And I was thinking, you know, this could be a somewhat difficult, you know, defense for Schwarzen, but then he blocks it at the bridge perfectly. Golden Knight takes out the Valk. The Magic Archer placed as close to the graveyard as possible while also still going to the left lane. So, I mean, everything was done well on defense, but just the aggression was beautiful. The Royal Ghost, it was interesting to see aggression without the Royal Ghost being placed at the bridge, and instead just cycling them in the back, allowing your Giant Skeleton to get more value because a lot of troops are getting clumped together. So yeah, it was just a different way of playing the same deck, and it really worked out for him.
I think one of the things that we don't talk about enough in Clash Royale is the reaction time of like the best players in the world. You expect them to all be that fast, but then when you actually play and you're in that moment and you're trying to get a push going down the opposite lane, and then all of a sudden they go aggressive Valkyrie plus Graveyard at the bridge, the fact that Schwarzen was able to sequence his defense the exact way that he needed to, with the block up high, the Magic Archer to the opposite lane, not overspending, all those like heads-up decision-making and the reaction time, it was every single thing was also the 100% best option of what he did. So I really love seeing stuff like that. It definitely falls by the wayside of some of the fancier stuff that we see, because at this point you really do expect that out of the best players. But also, to kind of counter that, you look at Paolo being, you know, where he is in this competition, and it really did just like Schwarzen outclassed him there. He was ready for absolutely everything that he could send his way. The Giant Skeletons were getting great value. The Magic Archer lineups were all over the place. They baited out the Snowball, or they baited up high units. You know, for instance, that Giant Skeleton bomb going off early on because the Cannon Cart was played really, really late. Because Paolo was worried about the Giant Skeleton getting to tower. I don't actually know if it was going to or not. I do think that Cannon Cart maybe was a bit of an overextension, but it's just small stuff like that that you see. Schwarzen had his interactions completely locked down, and Paolo's were just a little bit off.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was definitely thinking that at the time, and I didn't know, you know, maybe you can afford to allow, you know, that's one of those interactions where it's like, I don't think it's going to happen, so if it does, it does. And I think that might have been the best choice in that specific interaction. And yeah, he just never was really allowed to apply pressure. Schwarzen just dominated the game throughout, and just a really strong opener from the Team Blue side.
Yeah, and that is not the deck that Schwarzen just ran. The cards that are unavailable for Schwarzen are Golden Knight, Royal Ghost, NATO, Ewiz, Magic Archer, Drill, Bar Barrel, and Giant Skeleton. So, who knows? Maybe this is the deck that Schwarzen is about to run, and our producer is living in the future. That'd be cool.
Okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's possible. I don't think any of the 8 cards match. So,
he says, yes, I am living in the future. So 2 of them just staring each other down. We'll see what it's going to be. EG, RG, Lava, Golem even was played a good amount yesterday to some success. It was all about that Night Witch coming back into the conversation. 2 of them just having fun with the emotes. Do you have a favorite emote?
I actually don't like talking about my favorite emote because it's the skeleton strumming the guitar, but then that account got banned, so I no longer own it.
Wow, I haven't seen that one in a really long time. It's crazy when an emote first comes out, everyone uses it, and then you really get to figure out what a person's favorite is if they keep rocking it after all this time. I have the skeleton strumming. Maybe I'll start using it in our triple draft matches.
You know, that would be... Actually, I can't say, I really can't say anything because you won our last triple draft match, so I'm happy for you.
I appreciate you telling everyone. I wasn't sure if I was going to throw you under the bus or not, but I was going to, so I'm glad that you did it. And
yeah,
Paolo,
I have to be the first one.
yeah, and Paolo does end up going with Golem here, so we'll see what Schwarzen has in response. It is the Royal Giant, so hey, you know what, Tasty, you weren't wrong. Maybe it wasn't this exact deck, but I'm still impressed.
Me as well. We see a great Golden Knight getting a ton of value. No Night Witch in this deck so far, but Schwarzen, he will get the pull, but the Mega Minion will be very scary. Archer Queen not going to come out in response, so I don't know if it's necessarily going to be a tower down. Wow. I think, you know, he's going to get a lot of value, but this is definitely very close. 11:02. King Tower not locking onto the Baby Dragon, so in a great spot is Paolo. I mean, Schwarzen needs to do something. I don't think it's going to matter. Dark Prince at the bridge will be kind of scary, and he is a couple cards away from the Lightning, but the Golden Knight should be more than enough.
Golden Knight going to clean everything up here. Mother Witch does spawn one Piggy now to tank for that AQ, maybe. AQ should have a second ability coming down the lane. Lightning comes down, no, does not get the next AQ off, but the Lightning is almost enough. My goodness, that was almost a horrible turn of events there for Paolo.
Yeah, I mean, he just didn't have the correct response because he used so much elixir. I mean, it was the Baby Dragon with the Lightning on nothing that put him in that huge elixir deficit. It certainly wasn't the wrong play. It got the Baby Dragon a couple more shots. And yeah, I mean, it was great pressure from Schwarzen. And if the Lightning maybe was a little bit quicker, maybe the timing was a little bit better, he could have kept the Archer Queen just, you know, alive for just a bit more. But Paolo able to walk away with a victory. No Night Witch, but a lot of success with Golem regardless.
Yeah, I was going to say no Night Witch, no problem, but there was actually a lot of problems there at the end for Paolo, but he was able to clean it up, lock it down. Quick question for you in the macro conversation. Should Schwarzen have gone Royal Giant in the opposite lane? Isn't it usually not the thing that you want to do going a Royal Giant into a Golem push? Because then, as we saw there, the counter push that came in for Paolo was absolutely monumental because everything ended up getting behind the Golem. And then the way that Schwarzen had to defend, he had to pull the Golem to the King Tower. He had to get the Dark Prince up high, which then allowed that Mega Minion to get on top of the Princess Tower. I mean, I don't think it was a timing thing because I think the Golem had already been played. Did the Royal Giant need to go opposite lane, or do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, so when you're running that variation, I mean, basically any variation at this point with RG, because Fisherman is used in every single deck. When I have Fisherman, I usually like to go RG opposite lane because you can apply pressure, you know, the Archer Queen can snipe all of the support troops while you Fisherman the Golem either A into the middle or B to the King Tower. So I always like doing RG opposite lane. I think it would have had a lot of success in this matchup just because you would have been able to use the Archer Queen. You would have been able to Fisherman the Golem to the King Tower. And yeah, you're not really worried about, you know, a Goblin Cage in response from Paolo because that just makes his Golem push that much worse. So I always like seeing RG opposite lane against the Golem.
And using Royale API to take a look here at the replay of when things were played. Yeah, the Golem was played 10 seconds almost before the Royal Giant came down. So Schwarzen definitely had the opportunity to go opposite lane, but just chose not to his demise. And here we go. Paolo gets a nice connection here early on. Looks like he's going to go with maybe Valkyrie Fireball as his last couple cards with Fire Spirit. There's the Fire Spirit.
Schwarzen will have solid defense for the mortar, but at this point, I mean, it's weird, but a 700 HP advantage is, you know, monumental when you're using a minor cycle mortar deck. But this is going to be really nice, going to get a lot of value. Those skellies are going to give him a little baby counter push. And yes, the Valk does come out in response, but he has nothing for this RG just yet. Mortar will come out, but he does not have a lot of elixir.
He goes Mortar up high. Now Skeletons should be coming down. There they go. Not enough elixir for the Mother Witch. He goes with the E-Spirit instead. And this is going to be about 4 shots in. The log will mitigate it down to 3, maybe. Yes, it does still get 3. And now Schwarzen keeping up the pressure. Paolo had 4 elixir to respond. He uses a Fire Spirit and then a late Valkyrie. And that Valkyrie actually gets pulled away, so the Dark Prince gets more damage on the tower. And Paolo has not been doing great with dealing with these counter pushes from Schwarzen.
Yeah, no E-Spirit in response to the Valkyrie, so the Valk will get 1 shot, but the left side is certainly a lot healthier than the right, so it is okay that he gets that damage. Now the question is, does he have Fireball, does he have or does he have Lightning? What is the spell of choice for Schwarzen? Archer Queen is going to go to the opposite lane. Fisherman will be able to pull the Miner correctly, and you know, we're still just waiting to see what spell Schwarzen has. And if he is going to be in a really, really good spot, or if he was just going to be in an okay spot as this game heads into overtime.
What spell does Schwarzen want to have here? Probably Lightning or Earthquake, are you thinking? Which one is his best choice?
Yeah, I think Earthquake in a perfect world, but I definitely think Lightning would certainly be great. And there we go. We do see the Lightning get played. And the Skeletons aren't in cycle, so he is going to struggle on defense. The log will come out, but the RG will get shots if he doesn't defend properly.
RG doesn't get pushed the right direction, but does not matter. Damage from the Princess Tower and the log will do it. 515 and 908 to the lowest tower for Schwarzen at 1465. The dual lane pressure has been great from Schwarzen. Skelly's going to stop that, but that's, oh wow. Valkyrie does end up resetting, but the AQ plus the log should be enough. Schwarzen ends up taking it in our semis. He will be in our grand finals going up against either Furkan or Mugi. And Paolo, I like what I saw out of him today. I thought he played some really, really great Clash Royale. I think earlier in the day, we saw a little bit more composure and a little bit more poise, whereas I think later in the day, we started seeing him make bigger mistakes in terms of overspending offensively and then just not having great responses for counter pushes. I mean, he almost lost this set 2-0. He ended up stealing game number 2, which honestly, I think Schwarzen had no business even coming back into. And then here in game number 3, Schwarzen just kind of controlled that entire game.
Yeah, Paolo had an impressive day overall, but yes, there were a lot of negatives shown in this set. You know, whether it comes down to discipline or deck choice or whatever it really is. You know, certainly game number 2 was the definitely an interesting one where the Lightning was way too aggressive. If you're not going to be able to finish off the tower, it allows for your opponent to have, you know, that's always the 1% case where your opponent says 1% of the time I can make that comeback, and it really almost was that 1%. But overall, you know, a solid, possibly not debut, but also possibly debut to, you know, at least the competitive scene for a lot of people. This will be, you know, the first time that they are seeing that name pop up. And then on the other side, Schwarzen with a great set, great day overall, and a lot of his wins have been very dominant today, and just great gameplay overall.
So here we go. The exciting matchup between Furkan and Mugi. We'll see who ends up taking this. Neither one has lost a game yet today. Morton goes for the early King Tower activation there. Looking like it could be Royal Giant again, but also could be Hog Rider. Usually, though, it is a different spirit with Hog Rider.
Mugi not worried about the Golden Knight making it to the tower, and right here we do see the RG bit blade, and wow, E-Barb's coming out in response for Furkan. That shouldn't be a shot, especially after the RG kind of makes a long walk away from the tower, trying to get away from the giant skeleton, and because of that, not being able to make it, you know, get any shots on the tower whatsoever. So Furkan could be using a weird E-Giant. I still want to say E-Giant.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like he usually does run it, but it is going to be Golem here with the E-Barbs and the Golden Knight. that additional pressure on the ground can be very, very good behind these golem pushes or to create great opposite lane pressure. So now Mugi knows what he's going up against. Will he have the combination to play through this interesting golem deck?
Yeah, so right there, gonna Fisherman into the middle, not try and activate the King Tower. He believes that just the overall defense is gonna be the best option for him. And so far, I think it's proving to be the correct method of choice. You know, as this game goes on, maybe, you know, once he can, you know, get that RG opposite lane pressure as soon as he's goleming, and then he can try and Fisherman it to the King Tower. Right here, we see it again. No RG opposite lane, because he has to be careful about the E-Barbs just getting too much value on the RG. So we're just seeing a lot of defense from Mugi so far.
That's a really good point that you make about the RG just kind of getting eaten alive by those E-Barbs. We had this conversation just a moment ago about Schwarzen going up against Golem, but it is a very different Golem deck that he's playing against here for Can. And Mugi has a nice counter push coming down this lane, and then goes with the Royal Giant behind, now with the Giant Skeleton up high. That might be able to help with the E-Barbs. So you see the E-Barbs placed offset to the side, and that will actually push the Royal Giant back. That's a fascinating interaction.
Yeah, just brilliant gameplay from Furkan right there. E-Barbs will be able to clean up at least most of the Zappies. Possibly all of them. No, one of the Zappies does stay alive, just barely. We haven't seen Furkan try and protect. Oh, wow. That is going to be a tough interaction for Furkan right there. Archer Queen will be able to lock onto that. And right there, the Barb will be able to keep the Golem alive, and the Golem will be able to splash onto the tower because the Fisherman locks onto, I think it was the Bomber instead of the Golem like Mugi was planning on.
Yeah, surprising interaction there. Allows for that Golem death damage to come in. 1656 remains on that tower. Mugi down by about 350 HP. And hasn't really been able to create a lot of good offense. Now we see the E-Barb cycled in the back. Does Mugi go aggressive with the RG? He does, but he still goes same lane as the Lightning comes down for Furkan. And that is great Lightning value for Furkan.
Yeah, just able to stop it in time. Bomber will be played to take out the Zappies if the E-Barbs can't do it themselves. And right here, triple elixir on its way, 300 HP separating the two players. Mugi has not shown his spell just yet. So as this game goes on, how do each of these players want to build their pushes? Are we going to see the Golem in front? Are we going to see, and there we go. He is going to be running Earthquake instead of, just one of the original variations with Lightning or Fireball.
And we see a second set of E-Barbs coming down. Now a Lightning up high. E-Barbs very, very healthy here. Giant Skeleton should come down in response. There it is. Now Zapping's down low to make sure they can slow everything down before getting to the tower. I was going to say the Giant Skelly Bomb does need to have everyone close enough, so that's why you see that high Fisherman there turning everything around.
He's not going to be able to set up with another Lightning, so that's why we're not seeing him use the Lightning on top of the Archer Queen at the bridge. No, we don't see a NATO in cycle, so can he get that shot? He does.
Wow, NATO not in cycle, and then he uses the NATO there instead of pulling back the Royal Giant. And that is a incredibly impressive, once again, win from Mugi, who just said, I'm sticking with this lane. I'm going to keep going, running my head against this wall, and eventually I will break through just enough. And AC, what happened there in those final moments?
Yeah, I mean, Furkan didn't want, I think, it really comes down to the Archer Queen was placed at the bridge, so he wanted to try and get the Archer Queen into Lightning range, and so he was able to get it, but he just didn't have the DPS on the board, didn't have the elixir to set up for the DPS on the board, and that RG was able to get that one shot because of it. So I'm thinking maybe if he goes NATO offensively and then defends and then Lightnings, he would have been fine. He would have been in a position where he wins the game. Instead, he goes NATO, then Lightning, and then he just doesn't have the DPS. The RG gets that final shot. I mean, I really believe that game was played almost perfectly from both players.
Yeah.
But I think it was that one interaction at the end. If he doesn't Lightning early, he wins that game.
It's been fascinating to kind of watch Mugi's understanding of matchups. Every single game that he's in, I'd say by that 6th or 7th card being played from his opponent, he knows exactly what he needs to do to win out. Whether it's the constant pressure we saw before from the Golden Knight drill deck with Magic Archer, whether it's the slow play control like we just saw in that Royal Giant deck. I mean, it was, I think also the fascinating thing about it was he kept finding moments to slip in those Royal Giants that would just get so much elixir out of his opponent, so he couldn't continue to golem up. Furkan kept having difficulties of knowing when should I cycle E-Barbs or when should I cycle that next golem down. And Mugi, even though it felt like there was so much at the bridge to stop and slow those RGs, he was just able to get a couple shots through here and there. And then that late game Earthquake cycle, just absolutely brilliant stuff. I love the Mugi that we're seeing here today, man. It just feels like he is unstoppable.
Yeah, I mean, if you're able to take out Furkan, even in just one game, it shows, you know, what level you're playing at. And, you know, the deck choices have been incredible. I thought everything he did in that game was incredible, and it still allows him the opportunity to be able to use that drill deck. So yeah, I mean, just a great game number one. Both players, I was just so impressed by, and no RG available to Mugi at this point. Furkan still has the opportunity to be able to go in with the E-Giant Mirror. You know, I think I love that he used Golem in this variation, especially, you know, an E-Bars variation as well. Instead of the normal, you know, Baby Dragon Golden Knight decks that we've been seeing and we saw from Paolo in the previous set. Because had he used E-Giant, I think he would have been countered pretty hard. And it definitely gave him a chance. And now both players are kind of free to use a lot of different decks in this game number 2, and, you know, hopefully in game number 3 if we get there.
Yeah, I would hope that Furkan does not go to E-Giant in this game number 2, and it doesn't look like he is. I mean, he could be just running back what we just saw with Bar Barrel and Golden Knight in that deck. Mugi obviously has to change things up, but the fact that Furkan had the E-Barbs for the Royal Giant, he had the Lightning for the AQ, and he had the NATO to pull the Fish Boy in, and the fact that all of that still didn't matter, and Mugi was able to play through that, just really, really impressive. So it looks like Furkan does decide to stick with what he just ran. Mugi obviously changing things up here.
Tower will be able to lock onto the Inferno Dragon, so Inferno Dragon, no problem. E-Barb placed high instead of,
wow,
you know, low, but that Barb will be able to make it to the Mother Witch, and he shouldn't have any kind of Fisherman, so I don't know if both towers are going down or if neither tower is going down, but a lot of damage on the board from both players.
Yeah, that was a bit of an odd E-Barb placement there for Furkan. One of them kind of slipping away, getting taken out by the Mother Witch and the Bar Barrel, and then the second one being focused on the E-Giant. Barb was able to clean that up as well, so Barbarians have been putting in work for both of these guys, and now not going to be able to get the dash off is Furkan, but 1294 remaining on that tower. Furkan up by about 600 HP, and it's going to get even larger with that one bomber shot coming in, now up by over 800. Trying to work in the same lane here, but still has to be careful. And he does roll him up in the back. I don't know about that.
Yeah, great recognition to not use the ability. You know, it's just one elixir, but had he used it, he wouldn't have gotten value from it. Right there, you know the lightning's coming in, so you have to assume he's going to try and NATO that up. He does not, and so he's going to use the NATO, you know, offensively on top of the Inferno Dragon. So left tower will go down, and, you know, it's just whether or not he can actually defend and not give up any towers himself. And that is a great Golden Knight dash onto the tower.
Yeah, now Furkan basically ensuring that this tower is going to go down. Last card is most likely still going to be Lightning. You see this early cycled Bar Barrel up high, plus the E-Barbs. Now going to have to look for that Lightning. Lightning cannot take all those units out. NATO pulls everything back. We're going to game number 3. You'll love to see it. Mugi decides to try to rock the E-Giant against Furkan. Furkan runs back the same Golem deck, which matches up great against that E-Giant deck. And I loved what we saw there at the end. The Bar Barrel plus the Mega Minion plus the E-Barbs, the late NATO to make sure that that Lightning doesn't get enough value to get that E-Giant on the tower again. And this is, I mean, this is what you want to see. And now you see the matchup conversation going so heavily in favor of Mugi, but Furkan playing through it this time around.
Yeah, it really does feel like we're playing, or we're watching two players that are at a different level. You know, not necessarily Muhammad Light level, but basically Muhammad Light level. I mean, you know, the bomber to pull isn't really that difficult to start off a game, but it was also placed perfectly where the tower, you know, the left tower immediately locks onto the Inferno Dragon, and the Inferno Dragon doesn't get the value he needs. So, you know, as the game went on, I was thinking, oh, well, you want to get the E-Giant off your tower, so you're going to want to NATO it up. But instead, the Barbaro on defense gets the chip damage that he needs, keeps it alive just healthy enough where he can't lightning cycle at the end, and then he can use a defensive NATO, well, technically offensive NATO, on the Inferno Dragon, where his own Mega Minion can take it out. So, I mean, just incredible gameplay from Furkan, incredible gameplay from both so far. And that game number 2, I mean, it was heavy in terms of matchup advantage for Mugi, but the way Furkan played it, it was anybody's game. And I mean, the deck choices and the fact that he isn't going E-Giant and he went like a safer Golem variation, I love what he did there, and just this has been an exciting set so far.
It really has, and I really love that you pointed out that moment. That was probably my favorite moment of that game, was where the E-Barbs are up high, no defensive spells come out with the Barb Barrel, and then you use that NATO to pull the Inferno back, get that Mega Minion down instantly to refocus on that Inferno, or just take it off the board a little bit more quickly. And then that allowed the Golem to get on through. That made it so that the Goblin Cage had to come down. There was just so much more elixir spent there by Mugi than he wanted to, because I think in his mind he thought he could still defend that tower. He didn't want to go to a 2-tower game, really. And then obviously what we saw there at the end from Furkan, just recognizing what's the worst thing that can happen. And that's that a lightning comes down and cleans up all of my defensive units. So let's just pile those defensive units up at the bridge, NATO it back now that we've gotten all the way back around. We've taken that Princess Tower, and just a great game number 2. I agree. I love that Furkan ran this Golem deck again. I think he probably sees that it matches up well against Royal Giant usually, and matches up very well against E-Giant Lightning. So we'll see what he does in game number 3. I still feel like Furkan going to E-Giant in game 3 is probably not the way to go. And then if you look at Mugi and what he's already run in these games, I do think that the idea of trying to find something that's going to counter that drill deck is important for Furkan, because we have seen Mugi kind of go to it time and time again, and he hasn't played it yet this set. But that could also be the conversation of what we're saying of maybe Furkan doesn't go E-Giant in this one set, and maybe Mugi doesn't go to drill Golden Knight plus.
Yeah, I'd love to see him use E-Giant, but I just don't think it's going to happen in this set, because I'm fairly certain there's no NATO available to him.
Yeah, no NATO or no Golden Knight or no Bomber. So I think this was the idea that Furkan was like, I can't play E-Giant in this set, so let me see what I can use, and the Golem ends up working out. But now it's just really an interesting conversation with what Mugi can play. I mean, you can see on the side of your screen, those are the things that are unavailable. But Mugi doesn't have the AQ available, so he decides to go Golden Knight instead, even though Lightning is not in play. We might be seeing Graveyard. Who knows?
Yeah, so we could be seeing Drill. We could be seeing Wow. Gets the dash on top of everything. It really is never confirmed until the Golden Knight has finished its process.
Yeah, you can think you know where it's going to go, but it still surprises me all the time.
Invisibility will come out just in time, so we'll be able to take out the Musketeer as well as the rest of the bomb, or as well as the rest of the Brawler. So both players resetting Furkan, showing Cannon Cart Mortar with the Dark Prince, and the Dark Prince does make me think that it is going to lean towards Graveyard instead of a minor variation. But what do you know? Minor comes out as I say it.
And it looks like it is going to be Graveyard in the opposite lane, or at least on the opposite side here from Mugi, but we'll see. Snowball plus Musketeer usually means that, and then I guess going to the Golden Knight instead of the Skelly King is what Mugi wants.
So that is a very aggressive Dark Prince, because there's only a Cannon Cart and Cycle, so great recognition. Yeah. Dark Prince is going to be able to take out the shield, so he is going to be able to get a nice little 1 elixir advantage, just by recognizing what's in cycle, and now he doesn't have to be, he doesn't have to worry about a Cannon Cart getting cycled on the board for another 30 or 35 seconds.
Yep, which allows this heavy defense to come down on top of this mortar, and Mugi ready to go with the fireball, snowball. I think those bats maybe were a bit of an overspend there by Furkan. He could have played them a bit lower, now giving good value to this musketeer, but still getting good damage on top of the tower with the miner. And yeah, this is just top level gameplay, man. You love to see it.
Dark Prince, in response to the musketeer crossing the bridge, will be able to take out the cage, as well as probably getting a couple shots on the brawler. Just one right there. Mortar on defense, and that is going to be the first graveyard push coming in from Mugi. Bats are going to be able to take out a lot of the graveyard skeletons, but the snowball on offense will move the game into pretty much a dead even game.
I love that timing of Mugi just playing that Golden Knight in the back, hitting the booster, and then getting the graveyard down just in time. Snowball ready to go for the bats, and that is why he is one of the true best in the world, is he just has these brilliantly coordinated offenses that even though we can all see it coming from a mile away, Furkan still ends up taking a lot of damage there.
Bats played just a little bit early, so that cannon cart will be taken off the board from the Inferno Dragon. Archer Queen will come out in response. And there we go. We do see a low Dark Prince cannon cart on top of all the skellies. That is going to be a problem.
Cannon cart's locked in. Does get pushed back though by the miner and then the log to ensure that it does not come on through. But Mugi is definitely making Furkan play a little uncomfortable. Furkan's still in the lead though, and that is an unfortunate lock. It does get on top of the mortar, but that is not going to be what he wants. Cannon cart not going to provide any offensive utility, and this Inferno Dragon put in some great work there for Mugi.
Yeah, great Dark Prince right there. Going to be able to take the Inferno Dragon for a walk. Should go to the cannon cart, so will not receive any value on offense. But the Inferno Dragon is definitely one of those cards that you really have to worry about. Archer Queen high to not give value to an offensive fireball. You know, definitely a weird spot, but I get what you're, you know, now that it's triple elixir, you can get overly aggressive and you can get away with it.
Cannon cart plus bats at the bridge. Snowball does come down, but this AQ Dark Prince push on the left-hand side should get a little bit of value. AQ gets 3 shots in, 4 shots in on that tower. Meanwhile, the cannon cart is tanking for what I think was the miner, 1362, lowest tower on the board. Now Mugi going back in with a GY Fireball combination. Dark Prince plus log will be enough.
And that was only 1 skeleton shot throughout that interaction. No fireball on top of the musketeer. Can he get there in time? He does. So right tower down to 923, 400 HP separating the 2 players. Will he be able to block at the bridge? He does not block at the bridge, so the cannon cart does make it past the bridge. But the cannon cart plus Dark Prince should be enough. Furkan gonna walk away with the game number 3.
That is a great set. One for the ages here. Both these guys just playing absolutely phenomenal Clash Royale, playing through tough matchups. You love the mental games going on, the composure, the great offensive sends, the timing there from Mugi. And this is another one of those situations where you had mentioned before, Josh, like that is one of the best played sets by someone that lost. And I agree. I loved what we saw there out of Mugi, but Furkan continues his run, his reign of dominance here in the Royale Masters. And if it wasn't already confirmed, it is 100% confirmed now. Furkan and Tatone will be in our finals after we see Furkan showing up in our grand finals here today, going up against Schwarzen. However, if Schwarzen ends up winning, he could also be guaranteed as our 3rd person. We've seen him a lot over the last few weekends. I believe he has the points for it. And I believe that if you just get the 15 points for winning, that should be enough for Schwarzen. So we might have our 3 locked in, but that 4th place spot is still a big time question mark. And we have 1 more match coming your way. Yes, there's the 3rd place match. We will not be seeing that, although we will. I mean, we kind of wish we would because Mugi will be playing, but we won't be catching that here on broadcast. It is just our finals between Schwarzen and, no surprise, Furkan.
Yeah, I will say my heart hurts a little bit because now technically I have to stick with what I said. I am known to lie, so you know I will still be a huge Mugi fanboy. But as for now, I mean, Furkan, just incredible set, incredible gameplay today. These entire 3 weeks. If there's one player who absolutely deserves to make it to the playoffs, it's going to be him.
Yeah.
The dominance that he's shown. I mean, I think it was like 21-3 overall. in the day ones of the qualifiers throughout this tournament. I mean, the gameplay that is shown, it's so special, and I'm so excited for this final because, you know, Schwarzen has played a great set, but we've really only been talking about the lower side of the bracket. When we gush over the players, when we, you know, throughout this bracket, it's been, you know, you have bracket A and then you have bracket B, but right here, none of that really matters. You have bracket A and you have bracket B finally meeting. Schwarzen, everything on the line, trying to make it to the playoffs where he doesn't have to do the last chance qualifier. Neither of these players have that golden ticket, so both of these players are going for it all.
That's right. It's all on the line here at the Royale Masters Gold Edition. We'll be back after a very, very short break for our grand finals where one, maybe both, will be making it on to our Royale Masters Gold Edition finals in a couple weeks. Do not move a muscle. You do not want to miss the finals. We'll be right back. It would not be our grand finals without a little bit of drama here at Royale Masters Gold Edition. First thing that you guys need to know is this is Royale Masters, so we'll be in the Royale Masters duel format. This is a best-of-5 set between Schwarzen and Furkan. However, AC, we do find ourselves in a bit of a predicament. If Furkan wins, we will have our 4 players locked in. If Schwarzen wins, we will have our 4 players locked in. Those will be Titone, Furkan, Schwarzen, and Pandora. However, if Furkan wins, we find ourselves in a 4-way tie for 4th place between Schwarzen, Hugo, Morton, and Nico. And so it's really interesting because a lot of people out there are, I'm sure, rooting for Furkan, rooting for that 4 to be locked in. but there's a lot of other pros and a lot of other fans that are maybe hoping that Schwarzen pulls, I guess you could call it a small upset. It doesn't feel like he's like the underdog by a lot here. What are your thoughts on this situation that we seem to find ourselves in as the producers are scrambling to figure out what the tiebreaker means and who will come out on top?
You know, at the end of the day, if there wasn't drama with these kind of competitions, it wouldn't be Clash Royale, you know.
That's right.
You know, with the day one qualifiers, with only 8 games, it can be very difficult. You can not qualify at 7-1. You know, that's part of the fun, because at the end of the day, if you would have just won all your games, you wouldn't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
And right here, if Schwarzen wins, he controls his own destiny. He doesn't have to worry about that if he just is able to pull ahead and win this set. So it's almost deserving for that one specific player where he doesn't control his own destiny, and it could be anybody's thing. But at the same time, 4 players locked in a 4-way tie is crazy to think about. I think all of them should have probably 12 points, maybe 15 points, however it goes. And yeah, I mean, it makes sense. This is Clash Royale. This is a tournament. There's going to be some problems.
Yeah, so, you know, congratulations to the 3 that have been already locked in. Well, obviously, we'll be giving you guys a more official, more formal announcement, but based off the numbers and what we've already seen, Tone based off of his performance in the first 2 qualifiers, Furkan based off of his performance through all qualifiers, and especially today, locking things in. Those are going to be 2 of our 4. Obviously, the 4th player is still up for grabs, and then Pandora doing... Did I say Pandora twice? No, I didn't say Pandora does. Pandora doing a great job in our first couple weeks of competition as well, and technically winning our first one because of that terms of service rule break violation from trainer Adnan. Unfortunate, because Adnan played really, really great, and he was a lot of fun to watch. However, rules are rules, and them's the breaks. So Pandora, Tone, and Furkan are going to be awaiting who the 4th player will be, and technically Furkan can control that just at least a little bit in terms of making it harder for Schwarzen. If he can get through this best of 5, and that's where we're at now. Schwarzen and Furkan, best of 5. When you look at what Furkan has been running, we saw him run Mortar with Dark Prince and Miner in that final game against Mugi, which Mugi ran Graveyard with Cannon Cart, Golden Knight, Musketeer, and Inferno Dragon. But it was the back-to-back Golem plays from Furkan that really was able to kind of best Mugi. And I think that that was a really nice adjustment by Furkan, not wanting to play E-Giant, but instead goes to Golem. Here in the finals, AC, it would feel, I say incorrect if we didn't see Furkan running either Golem or E-Giant. But is that too predictable at that point, or is it too hard to predict when you're in a best of 5?
You know, in terms of being predictable, yes, it is very predictable. But too predictable is technically not something that can be used against him, because... You know, we saw what Schwarzen did against Morton with how he set up his deck 1 choice. And we now kind of understand that he is willing to go all out in terms of, you know, trying to get that correct matchup. But now that Schwarzen has, or now that Furkan has shown that he's willing to use different variations, he's willing to use a Golem E-Barbs or Golem, you know, just Golem in general instead of E-Giant. He can't go all out with one specific kind of deck. It's too broad a range to be able to try and snipe, you know, Golem and E-Giant and also any other deck that he could possibly want to use. So I think his set against Mugi has made this set a lot easier for him to manage and a lot more difficult for Schwarzen to really set himself up.
Yeah, and I think that the conversation that you and I have had so many times about the Royale Masters duel format with best of 3 is you should have a champion in every single game. I actually like the idea of not playing a champion in game 1 and going to dominant decks that don't have champions, i.e. Royal Recruits plus Royal Hogs with arrows. The reason that I love that combination is because arrows can be replaced by so many different cards, so many different spells. Royal Hogs and Royal Recruits really only work together. We saw the 6-man plus the Loon one time the entire weekend, and I think the overlap there isn't quite a lot. Although now we see that we're in this matchup already, conversation is pretty much nullified as we see Schwarzen going with Mortar, Arrows, Skarmy, so probably going to have a Skeleton King in that deck. Furkan on the other side of it could also be going to Mortar. we'll have to see what else he wants to play here. There has been mortar bait versions with bats and guards and Dark Goblin that have been very successful. And, of course, the Minion Horde version, which we haven't seen as much this weekend, but was very successful last weekend.
Yeah, so Furkan, you know, if you're a fan of Furkan, you definitely don't want to be seeing the Minion Horde variation due to the arrows on Schwarzen's end, and it's looking like it's probably just going to be the guards variation that we've seen a lot of people have success with. And right here, easy defense, easy offense from both players, just kind of resetting, but this is going to be a pretty massive push. No response for the bat, so he's not going to pop that ability. If he had a zap in this deck, the game would already be over. Instead, you know, just a full reset from both players.
A little bit of an interesting interaction that just went on there. You saw the Miner being played aggressively by Furkan, and it looks for the Dark Goblin, but instead catches the Skeleton King. But then because of that, Schwarzen still had to play the Dark Goblin, and he played it right next to the Skeleton King, giving way too much fireball value. Furkan, then, like you said, AC does get on top of the tower, but because there's no response to the bats, Schwarzen gets away with one there. Obviously, Zap not usually in this deck, but it would have been nice for Furkan in that moment. Definitely would have taken the tower, but instead, here we are. 2642, 2786. A Skeleton King stacked with souls here.
Miner going to be placed on top of the cannon cart, so he is going to use an offensive fireball. With that, cannon cart should be able to clean up most of the skellies and possibly stay alive. It depends, you know, what he wants to do with this push. Ooh. Arrows should come down soon, but he isn't going to use them. I guess he's worried about the souls from the Skeleton King, and this is going to be a difficult situation for him. Probably going to have to delay and use the arrows late. Or sorry, he doesn't even have arrows. He's just going to struggle with this this push.
And I think the biggest problem there was he just got way too aggressive with the Dark Goblin being played up at the bridge, and because of that, he had no good way, no cheap way to clean up all the skellies and the bats. And then Schwarzen doing a really great job of creating that opposite lane pressure there with the mortar, getting a ton of value. Miner goes to the Dark Goblin again here, but Dark Goblin of Furkan's taken off the board. And so far, Schwarzen has played an immaculate game number one.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with log bait and how you want to be protecting your princess. With these kind of mortar decks, you need to be protecting your Dark Goblin. It has everything to do with the fact that he placed it high. They got, you know, his Dark Goblin was taken off the map immediately, and it was just way too easy for Schwarzen to overwhelm. At this point, you have the cannon cart, you have the arrows, so you can't even defend a Miner arrows push. You only have a Skeleton King for that. And you know, it's not locked up, but it's certainly locked up.
Yeah. I mean, there is a nice Miner catch here, and so I guess Furkan has one more opportunity, but I can't imagine a world where Schwarzen drops the defense that much here. You see the Dark Goblin cycle to the other side. Arrows come down early on to help clean up all those skellies, and then Fireball comes in from Furkan to take care of the Dark Goblin. So a nice little battle here at the bridge, but it's really more about just having to kind of go through the motions before this one is closed out for Schwarzen, who is going to take a game one win here. Miner goes to the back again, is not caught this time. Arrows come down. That's a great game one for Schwarzen.
Yeah, great game number one. And certainly not the best game from Furkan overall. I mean, really, there was only one overall mistake.
Yeah.
And that's just playing the Dark Goblin too high, and then it kind of just easily snowballed from there. Schwarzen already had probably a pretty good matchup just because he has arrows, and the arrows are going to cover a large portion of the arena. And then Furkan with only the fireball. I don't know why my brain kept thinking he also had arrows, or, you know, but yeah, he only had a fireball, and so that's going to be very difficult as the game goes on, and the Skeleton King, you know, pops the abilities time and time again.
Yeah, I'm sure he wished he had the arrows. That would have been really great for him, especially with that bridge push that was what got that Dark Goblin out of Furkan. And like you said, that was really the only big mistake that happened, but it was a very glaring mistake. It was an uncharacteristically aggressive, bad play out of Furkan. just play the Dark Goblin lower, right? I mean, yes, you're still going to have the arrows probably come down and clean it up, but that did not even get the arrows out of it. So then because the arrows weren't played, your bats become even less effective. There's just no way for you to clean up all those small units. So that was just a really, really good play by Schwarzen in terms of always protecting his Dark Goblin. Even there at the end of the game, we saw the Skeleton plus Cannon Cart double drop to make sure that the mortar did not target the Dark Goblin. It was just stuff like that, just better decision-making throughout. And when you're going up against Skeleton King, it only takes one mistake. It really only takes you one bad cycle of not having the spell that you need and then cycling the best card response. Those two things being out of play, a lot of the time you'll just lose your tower.
Yeah, I mean, it really is just so difficult once you get going with the Skeleton King. So game number 1 does wrap up. Schwarzen uses the Mortar Miner deck, and here we go, we do see it. I really like the deck choice from Schwarzen.
Yep.
Skeleton King out of the way, but Dark Goblin isn't too, it's not used too often. Skarmy isn't used too often. Arrows allow you a lot of freedom for games 2, games 3. We saw in week number 1, Adnan did struggle because, the spells and the support troops that he was using in the earlier rounds kind of, constricted how he could set up his decks afterwards. And Furkan saw what happened in game number 1 and just recognized he needs a strong opening for game number 2.
Yeah, and I actually was going to say that I really hope that Furkan does go to E-Giant, because with Mortar out of cycle, Dark Goblin out of cycle, and Cannon Cart out of cycle are unavailable for Schwarzen, your best decks against E-Giant are no longer available. And so I love going to E-Giant here in game 2.
Yeah, this is a great start for him as well. Golden Knight is going to be cycled in the back, a couple cards away from E-Giant, so he can't build, any kind of real push so far. But oh my goodness, he might be able to get the E-Giant out in front, and he absolutely does. Golden Knight will be able to get a lot of value with his dash, and that is going to be an E-Giant on the tower.
A very healthy E-Giant on the tower, now pulling everything together. Going to help, Schwarzen a little bit there with the cleanup, but then in terms of having to deal with the counter push, he can just go high with the Skellies here, and that's going to be enough to clean everything up. Great plays there by Furkan. He's up by, he's up by over 1100 HP. He's up in Elixir by, I guess they're about even in Elixir, but Schwarzen already recognizing the situation he's in and calling a good game. And this is why I love this duels format. Furkan can use whatever he wants because he loses game number 1. And he chooses probably the best deck in his arsenal and in terms of matchup to go against what Schwarzen no longer had available in the Cannon Cart, the Mortar, and that Dark Goblin.
So we do see the low mirrored bomber going to be able to easily take that out. Wow, it doesn't lock onto the tower until he helps it out. So the bomber needs to get the splash. It will happen. But a great interaction for Schwarzen because Furkan helped him out.
And I love that Furkan even went with the high cannon there looking for the Magic Archer, but it just did not, he did not have all the pieces that he needed to truly play the defense that he wanted. Like you said, that NATO helping his opponent out. Now we see the level 13 E-Giant putting in work, getting just far enough away to where you can see that Royal Ghost isn't actually really doing anything other than taking damage. And that bomber behind is going to help clean up, so no big counter push going to come in.
Yeah, I like the E-Giant mirror. I thought that was great. It's going to be able to, kite all the troops, but I think that was a big mistake from Schwarzen. Allowing your tower to go down and then trying to build that push, it's just way too easy for him to mirror the E-Giant. Maybe, he could have gone in with a delayed Royal Ghost or delayed, I think it was the Golden Knight or whatever it was, but placing them all at the bridge at the same time just allowed for your opponent, who is very disciplined and, has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the deck, it's too easy for him to set up a kite.
One of the things that I think we haven't talked about a lot with E-Giant while we gush about it for week after week after week throughout this entire meta is just, you forget what a time suck it is too. I mean, we saw there late game, those 2 kites took 30 seconds of gameplay that Schwarzen just had no responses to because the units were completely locked on that E-Giant. Obviously, it moves slow, but it's a level 13 E-Giant, so it has so much HP But since it does have the stun and it's moving just fast enough, you saw how ineffective those two first cards in the Royal Ghost and the Golden Knight, they were just not really putting in the work that you needed them to clean that E-Giant up off the board. And then by the time all that is said and done, another E-Giant can be played. A non-mirrored E-Giant gets played on the other side to kite again. So even if Schwarzen had an entire minute when that first mirrored E-Giant was down to start the kite, I still think he would have not been able to get back on offense for an entire minute based off of great kites from Furkan.
Yeah, usually, we do often talk about, mirrored spells and just cycling spells at the end of the games, but really the damage and the just the true tanking from the E-Giants, you can just cycle those at the end of the game. You can waste that 30 seconds, 60 seconds. I have had games. One of my favorite decks to use right now is this pump E-Giant deck that has probably a 22% win rate for me. But it's so fun because I set up pumps, and then once double elixir happens, I'm just playing E-Giants for the rest of the game. I'm cycling, my Golden Knight, my Skellies, my Bomber, boom, another E-Giant, another E-Giant, and then I just keep that same cycle going. And you can just stack them so heavily in double elixir. And triple elixir is another story. I mean,
right.
You will always have something on the board.
Yeah, it really does feel like E-Giants are just incredibly dominant, but it is surprising when you watch Furkan play it as opposed to a lot of other people playing E-Giant, and he does just seem to have a little bit better understanding of exactly what to play, when to play it. I actually thought his cannon work was really good in that game. It's not something we talk a whole lot about other than just like mirrored cannons, but the cannon up high to stop the Magic Archer, even though the NATO ended up pulling it into range, but then also the other cannon played low to stop the Electro Wizard. I just love seeing all that stuff. And so we see an aggressive Skarmy at the bridge here. A response from Schwarzen is the Mother Witch, so it looks like Schwarzen's going to go to Royal Giant. Furkan going back to Skeleton King after the Game 1 loss, and he could just be running back the same deck that we saw with Skeleton King, Dark Goblin, Miner, Skarmy, Bats, Fireball, and Cannon Cart. But no, he decides to go Minion Horde version this time instead.
The Minion Horde placed over the middle of the bridge. Cannon Cart does get one shot onto the tower. He does use the ability, so the Dark Prince won't get any more value on offense. But he is down one elixir, and the Archer Queen does have its ability up, so a really tough spot for Furkan. This is,
Wow,
maybe a split Skarmy, but no, he's just going to tank the damage on the right, and that is going to be a log that cleans up almost every single skeleton.
That was a very, very smart log. I mean, it could have been a log, it could have been the E-Spirit, but either one would have put in work. Schwarzen goes with the log, the better decision of the two. Now the E-Spirit is still available for the Minion Horde, so now Furkan just has to sit back, reset, and wonder how he needs to build better defenses while still staying offensively present. And he has to work in the same lane as the Royal Ghost, or excuse me, the Royal Giant, which is not really what you want to do in this matchup.
Yeah, it's really going to depend on whether or not he can get the value that he needs from the Minion Horde as this game goes on. Schwarzen's last card is likely going to be Lightning instead of, anything like Fireball, and it also could be Earthquake as well. So he doesn't really have the correct answer for these Minion Hordes that will be coming down. I mean, right here we are going to see Minion Horde plus Cannon Cart, before it even crosses the bridge, is going to get pretty much taken completely off the map.
Yeah, that's a really nice trade there for Furkan. He finds himself even, but now ahead in damage, 1407 to 1485. And Schwarzen just goes to reset here. High Skarmy.
That's a very high Cannon Cart. I was kind of shocked to see him place it the way he did. Fireball will come down on top of the tower, and two of the troops does miss the Dark Prince, but not the end of the world. Will be able to pop its ability when he wants to, but it looks like he's just not going to.
Yeah, a little surprising there. Could have maybe baited out the log from his opponent or the Electro Spirit. Instead, the Electro Spirit gets to get used now. And now Furkan is starting to run on fumes here, it feels like. Lightning going to come in.
Yeah, great defense right there. I mean, the game started off so poorly for him, but he has played so well since then. E-Spirit will be able to lock on, and that is going to be a Skeleton King on top of the tower, getting a couple shots right there and cleaning up everything. There is piggies on the tower, so that is going to do a lot of damage, actually
Wow.
more damage for Schwarzen than Furkan.
That's right, 739 to 790, and that high E-Spirit plus Mother Witch combination was great. You saw Furkan looking for the E-Spirit, and now Schwarzen maybe making a bit of a mistake running the same defense back. Dark Goblin comes down instead this time, looking for that Mother Witch. Miner goes to the back of the tower. Not going to be enough to take care of the tower. This could actually be Schwarzen's moment to steal this game.
Skeleton King will come down, so he will be able to get his ability fully maxed out. Fireball will come down, takes out the Fisherman, and I want to see aggression with the Miner.
Yeah.
Because he is really only one Fireball plus log away. It is going to lock onto the into the Archer Queen though, so he is not going to be able to Miner Fireball it down.
And it's the last. I was like, the last part has to be Mortar. So finally, we see the Mortar played here. Has not been used yet by Furkan. Now Miner goes to the front of tower. That is GG. Well played. Furkan goes up 2-1 here with a great turnaround victory. I mean, you said it, AC. He started really, really rough for Furkan there with that AQ in the right-hand lane and the Royal Giant in the left-hand lane. You saw Furkan drop that Skarmy down, and the log came in, and in that moment, it felt like Schwarzen was really in control of the match. But how did he turn things around?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to the Minion Horde gameplay, and an impressive knowledge of how the matchup is supposed to be played. It's not, you know, the most common matchup. We see 7 out of 8 cards still only has a sample size of 58. So
right.
a lot of this is thinking on the fly. And we saw the cannon cards, the high cannon cards, time and time again, trying not to give lightning value to the tower, but also allowing him to set up with cannon cart Minion Horde, cannon cart Skarmy, where his opponent wants to log it off, and then it allows the Skeleton King to get a lot of value. There was a lot of different ways that he used, you know, the cannon cart on defense, but also just, you know, setting up the correct pushes. And then it came down to the Minion Horde got value every time it was placed on the board, and that's exactly what you need from a 5 elixir card.
I loved the way that we saw his varied offenses and defenses.
Yep.
Every single time it felt like Furkan was changing at least one thing up with how he wanted to defend. Or I think the other part of it that was really great and something that we didn't talk about a whole lot was the fireball value he kept getting. He kept getting fireball value on top of the tower, or when he wasn't able to get the tower, he was hitting like 3+ units every single time, including that Mother Witch, Fish Boy, Dark Prince, what have you. So the fireballs were absolutely great placed and timed, and I think a big part of that was those high cannon cards that you were talking about, because it would get all those units to kind of bunch up after they were played for the initial defense. And then you said it, the Minion Horde getting value, the high Dark Goblins looking for the Mother Witch after the Minion Horde didn't get value the time before. So just on-the-fly adjustments. And the last thing that you said that I really liked was the fact that, you know, the matching cards was like 6 of 8 or 7 of 8, whatever it was. It's not a normal matchup. And even the sample size in that was very, very small. So just heads up thinking the whole way through from Furkan. That gives him the advantage going into game number 4, up 2-1 right now. But now the conversation about what is available and what is not available becomes ever more prevalent. And I think when you look at what Furkan doesn't have available, he doesn't have NATO. He doesn't have Fireball. He does not have, you know, we talk a lot about Piggy's 6-man. I wouldn't mind seeing that here because Skarmy and Skeleton King are unavailable. I'd also be okay with maybe Schwarzen going to E-Giant.
Yeah, absolutely. There's still a lot of, like, meta decks that aren't super, super strong, but are still meta for Furkan. Schwarzen still has pretty much everything available to him, and it looks like he's going to go back in with the RG. That's a really solid timing on the lightning, and I think, yeah, the Mother Witch's death spawn ability is fully used up, and no pig gets spawned for Schwarzen.
Yeah, that's a really, really great start here for Furkan. They both give out the well played. Schwarzen showing a bit of, you know, that's some good sportsmanship, if you will, after taking that big hit early on.
And it looks like it should be RG versus RG.
Yeah.
Law gonna come out, be able to, you know, get a lot of value on a lot of different troops, and we will see the Archer Queen's ability be popped. And so solid defense, but Furkan does have the Tombstone, while Schwarzen, I believe, does not. And yeah, Schwarzen does not have a building for the RG versus RG bridge battles.
I love the timing on that last Dark Prince there from Furkan. Waits till the Archqueen goes invisible. It's on top of the Mother Witch, and that's just too easy. That's just where Schwarzen has to get better. You cannot think that that's going to work out that easily this early on in the game. You've already shown Fisherman. You know your opponent has Fisherman. You cannot just go hide in the inside like that against someone of this caliber.
Great defense so far. Ability has already been used, so it allows him to Dark Prince freely. But wow, he gets a second ability up. Not
wow.
With the Archer Queen, we often don't see the second ability get popped. So and right there, I like that he's going opposite lane, but Furkan just fully dominating this game right now.
Yeah, and the timing on that Dark Prince dash was really, really fortunate for Furkan, cleaning up that Archer Queen. Now we see Furkan just going high and at the bridge. That Fish Boy should be distracted by those zappies. This is a clear path to the tower here. And now you can see that Schwarzen is open to go for a tower trade, which actually might be able to happen here. Highlight comes down. Now the second RG in the lane, with the Fisherman and the Mother Witch still in tow. So we need to see a high Dark Prince here. He has to go zappies first to slow. Now maybe a Tombstone? I don't think he has it. There's the Tombstone. Wow. And that is going to do it. Furkan is your champion here. Goes back to back to back over Schwarzen after dropping game number 1. And now Furkan will be guaranteed, already was guaranteed to be in our finals with Pandora and Titone. But now our producers are going to be scrambling to figure out who on earth gets that 4th place spot. And I actually don't even know if we'll know by the end of this broadcast, as a lot of number crunching needs to go on. But in terms of what we do know, AC, Furkan 100% needed to be in our finals. And I love that he caps off our 3 weeks of open qualifiers by taking the gold at the end of the day.
Absolutely, I'm so happy for him. I mean, just the run that he's had in this tournament, the domination with E-Giant, the deck choices overall. I mean, in this game number 5, or in this best of 5 right here, using this deck in your game number 4 is just really solid. I don't know if he truly believed that Schwarzen would run RG once again. But Schwarzen is an RG player. People know him for his RG gameplay. So I just love that he used this variation in game number 4. And he almost got a little bit scary at the end of this game, but was able to play just enough, play just well enough, and didn't panic too hard. The Zappy's low, followed by the Dark Prince high, the Fisherman on top instead of trying to pull with the Fisherman. I liked what he did, didn't panic too hard. And yeah, I mean, just a great way to cap off the first 3 weeks of Royale Masters.
Yeah, I understand that high Fisherman from Schwarzen, on the other side of it that came down defensively against that Royal Giant. But I just feel like you have to imagine that Furkan is not going to allow that pull to come off. I mean, if that's something that I'm thinking about doing, Furkan is already going to be locked, loaded, ready to go with his own Fisherman. So, you like the attempt there by Schwarzen, but it was just a little bit too by the numbers when we were in the situation that we were at with the grand finals against this good of a player.
Yeah, as soon as you said it, I will say you thought of it when I did not. I was thinking that he was going to try and reset, or, how was he going to do it? Was he going to try and block with this, block with that? But the Fisherman on Fisherman, his Fisherman won the battle, got way too much damage early on. I liked that Schwarzen went opposite lane. He allowed his tower to get taken out. Can he build that one final push? It definitely gave him a chance at the end. And that's what I expect from Schwarzen. He had a great tournament overall in this week number 3. But yeah, it does not shock me that Furkan walked away with the dub today.
Schwarzen beats Ta, then beats Morton, then goes on to beat BK Paolo. Whereas on the other side of it, we saw Mugi and Furkan dominate from the beginning. They only lost a game to each other. That was the only place where we saw them lose games along the way. And then we do get to our finals. Furkan goes 3-1 over Schwarzen. An incredible, incredible run there by him all 3 weeks long here in the Royale Masters Gold Edition. But remember, there is still one more opportunity for you. Yes, you. This is the era of everyone. for you to come and join in our Royale Masters finals in just 2 weeks. Next weekend, our last chance qualifier, our wild card open, call it what you want. It is going to be a lot like what we've seen already, but of course, only the top 4 players will make it on through to our finals to face off against Pandora, Titone, Furkan, and a decided 4th player who we are not sure yet. Let's take a look at our leaderboard where we can see who is in the mix, who's guaranteed, and we will not have that 4th player or that 4th spot for you. So it does say Nico right now, but as you can see, they're all tied at 12. Nico, Morton, Hugo, and Schwarzen all sitting and waiting to see, which will be announced later on Twitter and on Discord. So make sure you guys are following Royale Masters on Twitter. Join the Discord so you can figure out who's going to be in that 4th place spot. You can figure out if you need to sign up for the wild card opens next weekend or not. But the numbers don't lie. Furkan with 27 points over these 3 weeks, AC.
Yeah, I mean, just dominant through and through. 27 points, and then I mean, Pandora did have, I think it was 18, so, you know, there was one other player who was able to make it over the 15 mark, but yeah, just what a run that man has had. And I was wondering, I'm not exactly sure how it was set up, but I'm wondering if Furkan would have lost his game number 1, and, you know, whatever would have happened with the bracket happened. Could have been a 5-way tie. So it could be even crazier if you really think about it.
Right. And just for you guys to know at home, for your own little bit of bookkeeping, points do not matter next weekend. It's all just, it's like brand new, starting fresh. The best 4 players out of the competition next weekend will get a pass on through. They don't get to write off their points from the past. They don't get to write off their performances over the last few weeks. It is all about what you can do next Saturday and Sunday. AC and I will be there along with you guys, along with our great team of producers and admins. The admins are doing a really, really great job going, keeping all of the games on screen between the admins and our producer, Tasty Bacon. The fact that every single day on our first day of open qualifiers, we're getting dual screen action all day. I absolutely love it. AC, any final words that you have for the people out there that are going to be joining up in the Wildcard Open next weekend?
Well, let's see. You're not going to have to go against Furkan, so that's always going to be a plus. Hopefully, you've taken something from his gameplay. You've been able to figure out E-Giant just as well as he has. And yeah, you know, nothing from these past 3 weeks matters. It's just whether or not you can reach that top 4 to qualify for the playoffs. And it's always great to have a competition where you only need 1 day. You only need that special day to be able to make it to the finals. So, yeah, go out there and do your best.
And you never know who's going to show up on that final day. We've had world champions from every single year show up in Royale Masters, starting all the way back in 2018. Every single world championship team and player in Mugi have been here, and you have to imagine all those that are still looking for the golden ticket will show up next weekend. Same time, same place. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, go follow Royale Masters on Twitter, and join their Discord so you can figure out who that 4th place spot is going to go to. Maybe you don't need to sign up if you are one of the 4 in the mix. For everyone at Royale Masters, Joshua, AC, Sharon, our producer, Tasty Bacon, the incredible team of admins, I am Andrew Guy. We will see you next weekend. Do not forget to keep on clashing.